As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome, everybody, to Crunch Time. But with Jeff, with Booner, with Lucas, and with Gentry. It is Friday, August 9th. Yesterday, we were live. 4.5-hour watch party for the Lions' first preseason game. It was a success. We had a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live. We're going to break down a lot of what happened in that preseason game. Now we're a day removed, share some of our thoughts, our takeaways, maybe some, it's almost like a little bit of a stock market, like who we're higher on, maybe who we're lower on. We'll talk about it all. But boys, on a Friday, how we feeling? How we feeling?
Great
Feel
day,
good.
great day. Can't complain, heading the weekend. We're not going to Nashville this weekend, but I don't think anything major is coming up. It's going to be a good weekend. Had a great week with the fellas. Got Lions football back to break it down. And we got the doc. We got the doc tonight, I can't wait.
Yeah,
we do.
Big show today.
Yeah, the doc will be joining us at 9 o'clock. So Doc will be he's driving all the way from where he was from MetLife. I think he took the trip. He spent the night, drove, and he's been driving all pretty much day. I think he's in Toledo. Last time I got the doc checkup in Toledo.
Yeah,
He's in the city.
He's in the city. He's in Toledo, and I said you might as well have dinner at Klotz's house. And he said no. He said he had to get back in time to get on the show. So I'm pumped to have the doc on. We have a lot going on today. I'm pumped. There's a lot of things going on with this Lions team.
I'm going to be honest, fellas. Like last night, I know it was preseason. We had some moments on the show, the Hendon Hooker stuff, and him playing well. We had Broderick playing well, and it was just good energy all around. It just, again, it makes me so excited for the regular season. We'll be doing this for every preseason game, just kind of watching and breaking it down a little bit here. But I hope everyone's doing well on a Friday. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to bring this up to kind of start the show, and this is on PFF_Lions on X. And they put out the highest graded Lions players, and they did their own little ranking here. So I want to show you guys this list because we're going to give out our the players that broke out to us, and some guys that showed out, some other guys who didn't. But here is PFF_Lions. Here's their list. Let me put this up for you guys. They had Duke Clemens coming in with the gold. That's the offensive lineman out of Duke, correct? I think I could be wrong. Is he Louisville? Louisville? I don't know. I
want to say Duke, but I could be wrong.
Or UCLA, I think it was.
UCLA, yeah.
UCLA. Yep. That's he played center. So that's good news. Duke Clemens out there. So he took home the gold. Amik Robertson got the silver.
Here we go.
87.5. And we pointed that out on the stream, how just watching it, we're like, Amik Robertson, he looks like he doesn't probably need to play another snap in preseason. That was my takeaway from Amik Robertson. Mitchell Agude, he came in third with the bronze, 81.5. Ennis Rakestraw and Connor Galvin, who actually Connor Galvin, I believe, towards MCL. So he's out for the season, if I'm not mistaken. So unfortunate news there. But Ennis Rakestraw was on this list as well. But those are your top 5 highest graded Lions of yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Will.
I was saying Amik and Ennis, they both probably should be on there, and I think they only played like two drives or something like that, if even that, maybe just the first quarter, and they looked fine. I know there was a lot of people like, they didn't stand out, like they really didn't need to. Like Ennis Rakestraw had they really didn't target him a lot. I think he was out there for like 20 snaps. Didn't go. I think they went at him twice, and one of the times he got beat at first, and then ended up basically the tackle for a loss out of bounds. So like. In Amik, no one went at Amik. Amik's just Amik. I think Amik's solid. I was shocked. Like, I guess he's battling for that nickel spot, so he has to play, and they want to see what he can do. But he's a guy that's like, he's on the roster. He's going to be probably starting. He was like probably the only starter that played last night was Amik Robertson, which was a little
besides like Terrion, who's going to be
yeah. Well, Terrion as well, but rookie. But I'm saying like a vet starter.
Yeah,
Amik might have been the only one that actually suited up and played. So he should be 87.5. He should be number 2 on this list.
Yeah, you are right about that. I think unless Fountain ends up getting more, but yeah, you are right. He was the only really starter. I think he will start. He was the only guy on this list, especially. And Dan Campbell kind of talked about it too yesterday, or last night rather, about some of the guys that showed out. And he was discussing Ukwu, who we brought up on the show. He was kind of causing some havoc. It was nice to see him and Nate Lynn. So he kind of talked about that. I thought overall defensively, probably more highlights. I think everyone would agree with some of the players, guys that, like Ukwu, for example, who actually, I think, he was at Ole Miss. It could have been somewhere else too. But he played well. Nate Lynn, Broderick Martin, which I'm sure we'll get into. But there's a lot of guys, man.
Yeah, we will.
Defense won yesterday. At least they lost, but the defense looked pretty good, I will say. At least early in the game they did.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, they had no shot. At least with Nate Sudfeld out there, they had no shot. That was – I put something on my Twitter earlier, but that was probably the worst quarterback play I have seen in a long time. Like, it was honestly embarrassing. Embarrassing the lines, embarrassing the games. I don't know how you walk out of that preseason game with Nate Sudfeld, who's been in the NFL for some years now. He's been on multiple teams. How do you look like that against the Giants' second – I understand that the Lions have their twos out there. But Nate Sudfeld, as an NFL veteran, how do you look that bad and have an NFL rookie come in for 2 drives and show you, okay, yeah, this is how the drive and this offense is supposed to look? I don't see a way that Nate Sudfeld should be on this team after last night. I understand it's preseason, it's the takeaways, but if you put Nate Sudfeld out there with the Pro Bowl roster, the NFC Pro Bowl roster, they still might not be able to win that game because, one, doesn't know how to move in the pocket, doesn't know how to go through reads, and it looked like clear as day. I know it was rainy out, but he couldn't get the ball anywhere. Like, he doesn't have the arm strength to do anything in this offense besides check it down, which he rarely does. He probably took a sack before that. So that, in my opinion, was the biggest eye-opener. Like, I knew Nate Sudfeld was bad, but I didn't realize that bad.
Yeah, I honestly, like, it was a tough, and this is where it's like, it's tough for the Nate Sudfeld experiment, because at the end of the day, let's just be honest, he's going to be what Blau was last year for the Detroit Lions. Like, he's going to be on the roster. He's going to be the third emergency backup, and he's going to be walking around with all of Jared Goff's notebooks, water, everything that Jared Goff needs over the next 6 months on a Super Bowl run. Nate Sudfeld will be the one that gets it to him. He's going to make sure all of his scout is prepped. He's going to make that. That's Nate Sudfeld's job. And his job isn't to go out there and actually play football anymore. Like, it's you're doing what David Blau did for Jared Goff. That's what you're doing. It's not football. There are guys in the NFL and quarterbacks in the NFL who are the third, fourth option, and they are essentially just there to make sure the starting quarterback's day-to-day life is easy. That's who Nate Sudfeld will be. What we saw out of him yesterday, like, I at first I was shocked. I was like, this sucks. And then I was like, all right, what did we really expect out of Nate Sudfeld? Nothing. So, like, I really don't care about the Nate Sudfeld stuff. Like, it's just like, what were we expecting? Like, I don't think anyone, like, we saw this before last year. Like, we've seen this before.
Yeah, but the way people were talking him up.
I don't think, no, actually, no one was talking Nate Sudfeld up. It was, Hendon Hooker isn't QB2 material. By default, it was Nate Sudfeld.
But can we agree? The conversation leading up until yesterday was Nate Sudfeld has looked better than Hendon Hooker. There's not really a debate.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then he
probably has during camp.
With the same guys he's been looking good with in camp.
That's where I think it's like he probably has during camp. It was just in game. Like, Dan said it at the end in the press conference. He was like, he admitted, he was like, I don't know what Nate Sudfeld was doing in the first half. He was like the reads, everything he was doing. Like, he was like, there are things that were. Can you guys hear me still?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. All right. He was like, you guys froze on mine. He was like, there are things that, like, I don't know why Nate Sudfeld made those. I don't know what he did. But then he did say, he was like, when he went in the second half, he looked like he settled down a little more. And he just, like, he did make some throws to DPJ and a couple guys. So you're like, all right, maybe the first half that dude was absolutely just nervous. I don't know. But it's preseason. So it's like, I just don't think, like, I just think, like, maybe he was playing well in training camp. And in the game, he just absolutely just didn't know what to do, and he just folded. So maybe that was the thing. So I don't know.
If you were to throw Kyle McCord in the NFL right now, he looks better than Nate Sudfeld. Like, though, in my opinion, the reason why Nate Sudfeld came back in the second half and looked good is because instead of going up against the twos, he was going up against the threes and the fours for the Giants. And it's like, okay, you can. How many points did he put up? Still 0. So that's the thing where it's like, I get what you're saying, Booner, it's preseason, and I know you're hand in hand with me on this. But why do we really need a quarterback when we look at the depth chart? Like, if you're not for sure Hendon's going to be the 2, why do you have a guy in the quarterback room that's is not going to play? Like if you have zero faith in him stepping out on
Well,
the
no,
football field, what is he doing
that's
on
where
the roster?
that's where me and you aren't hand in hand, because guys, there are like, this is a thing in the NFL. Go look at there is going to be a quarterback who is literally cute. Like last year, I remember. Shout out Broder last year we sat down and because I was like, why is David Blau back in the room? Like he should not be in that building. And he said, hey, like, because he was in the building all year last year. The what David Blau did behind the scenes, obviously he can't play football, and we were like, hey, this guy's not that good. We do not want him ever on the field. But he was like, the stuff, he does behind the scenes, he does deserve some credit for helping out Jared Goff. Like Jared Goff, you got to think about an NFL quarterback. You play on a Sunday night and then you have a Thursday night game. You have no chance to go recover. You have no chance like to prepare, to watch film, to get scout, to speak with the O-line, to sit down with Frank, to do like, you can't do that. It's impossible. The guy like David Blau, the guy like Nate Sudfeld, those guys have to go in and do the dirty work and help get the scout ready for Jared Goff, help make sure the film's ready to go. Watch the film when Jared Goff is in the training room and breaking it down so you can go help Jared Goff do this, do that. Make sure his binders are all set and at his locker for the morning. But Klotz, like, I get your point.
Like David Blau started for Thanksgiving and threw 3 touchdowns for the Lions before. Give me David Blau back.
Dude, I get all right.
I don't see what
you're not processing the point that I'm making.
I'm just in
disbelief. No. I understand your point about how he helps.
Nate Sudfeld has been in the game with Jared Goff. He knows what Jared Goff needs.
Hey,
he's been here for years.
Nice. It's time to. It's time to go.
I'm confused. Okay, please, Booner, go. You think? Okay, so
I've
you're
got
bringing
nothing
up.
else. I've explained exactly what he does.
Your point is, well, Nate Sudfeld. The reason why they like him is because of his value to Jared Goff.
Yeah. Yes, he's been in the building for 2 years.
But we need someone who could play quarterback.
Okay, so you bring someone in front of Nate Sudfeld, and you let Nate Sudfeld just be that wide or quarterback 4, and you keep him in there as an practice squad guy.
No,
you need someone in that building to help Jared Goff out. I don't think people realize that.
We do. It's just I think there's
someone who knows Jared Goff.
A roster spot though, Boone. A roster spot to help Jared.
The quarterback rule is now you get an emergency backup now off the practice. You get a practice squad in an emergency. They changed the rule last year because of Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell was the one that actually helped change that rule. You get an extra quarterback now.
Like on game day, you do, but like as far as you can dress one on
game
day.
on the practice squad.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the practice squad spot. Would you rather have Nate Sudfeld where practice squad? You want to develop guys? Like I just
Nate Sudfeld is your QB. Nate Sudfeld is your quarterback 4 to make sure Jared Goff is happy. I'm in for it.
I don't
like let me break this down for you guys. Like in a business that we have going here with Crunch Time, like a business we have with Crunch Time. If we have a behind the scenes guy who absolutely kills it and sometimes wants to come on the camera, but he kills it. He puts our prep together. He is sitting there getting us stats. He's doing 100 million things. And you know, we're like, dude, you're just like not that great on camera. Like we just can't throw you out there and we can't do it. But then it's like, hey, we're still gonna let you get on camera, but you're gonna cook behind the scenes for us, and you're gonna make sure we're prepared for every show. You're gonna make sure when we do live shows, you're helping us out, set up. You're helping doing all this. You are someone who's gonna make sure that this operation runs and our star quarterback runs very cleanly. You're gonna be like, yeah, like let's keep that guy. Like every NFL quarterback room has that. They have a 4th quarterback who sits there and goes and helps the starting quarterback out. I don't even want to know why we're having this conversation. I'd rather be talking about Hendon Hooker right now. The fact we're talking about Nate Sudfeld this long just irks me.
Well, no, Lucas, go ahead.
It's fine. We'll move on.
I want to respond. Just
because I say that doesn't mean you can't respond.
Talk about with this team all the time. If you can upgrade. If we had a guy behind the scenes that couldn't talk on camera, and then we found a guy that couldn't do behind the scenes and could talk on camera, wouldn't you prefer to have that guy? It's not like, that other guy's useless, even though Nate Sudfeld on the field is practically useless for this team. But if you have a guy that can be active behind the scenes and active on the field, yeah, I'll upgrade. I'll upgrade right now. If that means the team's going to be in a better position to win, I'll do that 10 times out of 10. The company's going to be in a better spot because you can find somebody better. Absolutely, I'll upgrade.
Yeah, real quick, but and I'm not even going to. This isn't towards, but I'm just talking for Nate Sudfeld. If you're on this roster, if you're asked to play, at least to some capacity, if you're taking up a roster spot, I got to trust you. I don't think you can. You keep Nate Sudfeld as quarterback 4 because he's like an extension of a coach. You're like, okay, then hire him and have him retire and become a staff member. and he can help Jared as a
And
staff.
no one was mad when David Blau was QB5 last year on the
David
roster.
Blau-
Because David Blau threw touchdowns in
better.
football games before.
He was
for this
never gonna. He was QB5. He was never
he
gonna
looked-
touch the field.
So you're arguing
never
Nate
gonna touch the
Sudfeld's
field.
better than David Blau. I know
crazy that we're having this conversation about Nate Sudfeld. I never thought I would wake up and stick up for a Nate
so we should move on.
Sudfeld.
There's no reason to. He looked awful, and he continues to look awful.
He's
There's
terrible. He's terrible.
Exactly. So I don't want him taking up a roster spot.
You guys are going to have this whole conversation, and he will be on the team at some. He's going to be on the team all year.
That's okay if he is. That's fine. All we're saying is we don't agree with that.
Yeah,
at all.
We just don't. We would rather. I would rather just get rid of him. Get rid of him. Cut him. And you have Hendon Hooker.
Let Jared Goff do all of his dirty work. Yeah,
that's why you have coaches. I mean, Jared Goff was a Pro Bowl before.
All right. So now let's move on. Let's move on because you guys are now just using an argument like in the NFL. That's how it works. That's how it works. The back end quarterbacks help.
Secret recipe.
No, you know what? Let's move on because you guys aren't just I just explained to you how it works and how I was told it works, and there's no one comprehended what I said. So
I'm sure
let's move on. Don't listen to the chat when the chat says assistance.
You're not paying Jared to get helped by Nate Sudfeld. Like
that's part of his job.
For example, last year at the New York Jets, Mike White, QB3. Mike White steps in and he wins them a football game. David Blau, or not David Blau, Nate Sudfeld is never doing that for you.
Oh my gosh,
and
Nate Sudfeld, that's not the argument, dude. That is not the argument. I'm not saying
I understand what you're saying. Jared
he will
Goff
never step in on the field in the regular season.
That's exactly.
So that is irrelevant
exactly.
to the
But if the season were to start right now, Nate Sudfeld would be the QB3 of this team. What I'm saying is, last year the New York Jets were in a situation where they had Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember who it was, some random guy, and then Mike White. Mike White steps in. He wins them 2 games. What I'm saying is, knock on wood, if there's a situation where Jared Goff goes down, Hendon Hooker gets hurt in the game, now we have Nate Sudfeld in there. I'm not comfortable with that at all. Never.
Okay, let's talk about Hendon Hooker.
We can move on.
All right, we'll move on.
I mean, it's just crazy. We got this Nate Sudfeld thing. I don't even care about Nate Sudfeld. They can cut for all I want. I just give you guys a reason of why he will be a part of the Detroit Lions organization this year. That's all. The reason is extremely valid, and they did it last year. They brought David Blau back from Minnesota last year for that initial reason, and then he retired after.
And what
I'm just letting you guys know.
Became a coach.
Right. Yeah, he did. But I'm just letting you guys know, prepare yourselves. He will be on this roster, whether it's practice squad or not. Like, I'm just letting you know.
We agree with you there, Boone.
Then what is the argument? That's my point the whole time.
That just because something happens doesn't mean you'd have to be. I agree.
Yeah.
I will walk off the show right now.
Then go ahead and get emotional. We don't have to just agree with everything you got to say all the time, regardless if it's going to happen. We can have our own opinion.
Yeah, like, it might happen, Boone. Still hate it. Cut him. Like, I don't care about what's going to happen. I care about what I think, and I don't want Nate Sudfeld on the roster. Point blank. Period. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's talk about the game.
Well, actually, speaking of Sudfeld, let's bring up winners and losers. I think a very valid candidate for a loser would be Mr. Nathaniel Sudfeld. I think he makes the list. A big loser last night. I mean, the guy couldn't hit a side of a barn, and that's a problem. He was the guy who won the quarterback 2 job. He's one of my losers. I'll go through mine first, and we'll kind of go. You want to just go with losers, Boone, or you want to do both? Which way you want to do?
Start with losers. It'll be easier.
3 losers. I wrote down 3 and 3.
So we'll do 3 losers, and then we'll go around. Then we'll do the winner. So I'll start. Nate Sudfeld, loser. All right, absolute loser. The other one I have is a player that I didn't expect to be a loser, to be honest with you, from last night, and that is Maurice Alexander. I did not expect to be writing his name down as a loser from last night. 2 fumbles. One of them was recovered, still technically a fumble. I think for him, we expected him to be the Swiss Army knife kind of on special teams, to be that guy, the gadget guy that, can get what he was last preseason. He had I think it was a kickoff return or a punt return, whatever it was. But we expected that. Did not see that last night. So last night, he was a loser. So Nate Sudfeld, Maurice Alexander, and the last player, this one you are not going to like. And I'm going to bring him up because technically he didn't win last night, and that's Darius Fountain. Did not win last night. I will tell you that. He is a loser. Not that this means he's cut, but based off last game, whether it's Nate Sudfeld, I get it. The offense was not great, but technically, Isaiah Williams is out there making plays. He got pulled in the first quarter. Unfortunate. So as of right now, he's in that category. I think he proves that moving forward. I'm going to make that very, very clear. But just in terms of, he had a couple targets, wasn't great. But Darius Fountain,
allowed to?
He's right here. He
talk about yours.
technically now, yeah. Tell me.
I keep seeing the Dries Fountain one. I saw some people write about. I don't like that one as a loser, personally. Like the one target that he actually got to him was like a great defensive play, and it wasn't in a great spot for him to catch. I know some people in the chat were like, "Oh, he should have caught that." That's a tough catch. Like that was a tough play to make, and it felt like there was so many times he was open. And Nate Sudfeld, I think he might have, and I want to double check actually, and I can check while we're live here how many snaps Dries Fountain actually played. I think he only ended up playing in the first 2 or 3 drives maybe, and I just don't think that, like, I felt like he was open a few times. There was a few times on stream we were like, oh, he's open, and they just didn't get him the ball, and that was a little bit to where it's like he's kind of getting open. He only played 27 snaps last night, so he only played in, I think, probably 2 or 3 drives. But I felt like Dries Fountain just didn't get the opportunity playing with Nate Sudfeld. Like if Dries Fountain played a couple drives with Hendon Hooker, I think maybe he would have gotten a look. Or if he played with Nate Sudfeld in the second half, like when DPJ was out there, I think he would have gotten a look. I just think Nate Sudfeld played so bad to start. And Klotz, I think there was a couple times where Klotz was like, Fountain's wide open, and Sudfeld just didn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to put a guy like that as a loser when he was getting open, and he had to, like, it's easy to be like, yeah, he had the 3 targets, but I don't think those were 3 good targets. Like there was a couple where they threw it deep and he just threw it over his head, and he was never had a chance.
No, and I'll get to the winners because I do have it's like I have a receiver as a winner, so I can't. I get it. I completely understand that point of, excusing him given the quarterback situation. I understand that, and I'm not saying loser as in cut him, but again, like, based on what I expected, they probably should have made it a priority to get him the football. But again, I don't think Dries Fountain is somebody, and maybe I could be very, very wrong, but if he makes no impact in preseason, I don't think he's just guaranteed a spot. So that's why I do hope over the next couple of games, especially when they're at home in a dome where it's not crappy weather and you don't maybe have Nate Sudfeld throwing him the football, he can make more of an impact. So again, this one, it's just for right now. I think he turns that narrative around. He makes plays, but I get that. If you want to say you disagree with it, fine. I just was looking at some of the guys that were losers, and I thought I think when you hear loser, you're like, he's not a loser. I'm talking about who gained from last night. I don't think Dries Fountain gained anything from last night. I mean, maybe getting open, great, but to me, he's just kind of stayed the same, and I didn't expect that. I'm gonna be honest. Game 1, I thought you'd see that Dries Fountain. Here we go.
I do think there's a sense for Dries Fountain that, like, if he was really like on the bubble, they like obviously he had to play because he's in that battle. But if he was really on the bubble, he probably would have gotten more snaps down the stretch of the game.
Yeah,
like they would have worked him in more. So that's
not completely his fault. I will say that.
No, yeah. His fault. And I feel like they've seen enough in training camp and at the joint practices to know, like, hey, yeah, we're good. We like what we see out of him. It was just a tough, like, rainy day yesterday, and then obviously the Sudfeld situation did not help Dries Fountain at all.
Yeah, so those are my 3 losers. Again, the Fountain thing, if you want to disagree with it, you could pick another guy. I see someone put Zonovan Knight. You could put him there. I don't think you can argue Nate Sudfeld and Maurice Alexander. Those got to be 2 losers, but continue. You guys can go.
Klotz, you want to go next?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I won't even waste time. We already went down the Nate Sudfeld path very extremely just to open up the show. So Nate Sudfeld is number 1. But my 2 and 3, both the backup tackles. Jeff, your boy Giovanni Manu, which I don't think you can be overly mad about just because, I mean, he's a developmental guy. You knew that coming in, and he struggled. He held his own against kind of more balanced pass rushers, but when you saw the more athletic defensive ends, he gave up 2 sacks. So I think he's definitely got to be on there. And on the flip side, the other tackle that was going during when Manu was out there, and I really did not expect to put this player on here, but Colby Sorsdahl. If you go back and you watch Colby Sorsdahl last night at tackle, remember he's drafted as a guard at tackle, he was struggling significantly. He gave up a sack for 1, and then if you just watched him throughout the game, he was just getting bullied on the end. And I think when you look at him, that's kind of like their 6th man of the offensive line. So to see him struggle like that against the Giants' number 2 and 3 defenses, I think that definitely has to be noted, because when you look at that, there's going to be injuries on this offensive line, and we talk about it all the time. When somebody on this offensive line gets hurt, there's going to be a lot of rotating pieces with the starting unit. So to see Colby struggle that much, it was definitely concerning. Not so much with Manu, but Colby, I was expecting a lot more from him last night.
I actually, I'm going to be honest, I would put Colby over Dries Fountain. Is that fair? Can we do that? I think that's a more fair loser than Dries Fountain. I'll even get that. I'll give you that.
I think, honestly, I put my number 1 loser was the entire offensive line depth. Like I just did not feel like this was basically our second, third team offensive line that was out there. Outside of like Sione Vaki, like you had 0 run game, and I don't blame that on a Jamar Jefferson or Craig Reynolds. Like to me, that's like the offensive line has to get some sort of push and create some holes. They did nothing. Like, and obviously I know Sudfeld can't really move in the pocket, and he had a couple tough like spots where he could have probably moved out, but like gave up, like I felt like they gave up so many sacks even when Hendon Hooker was in, like he was running for his life at times, and that's how he ended up making some of those plays. Like the secondary offensive line, that depth there, and Jeff, you say it a lot, like it's hard to get depth on the offensive line in the NFL. Like it's so difficult because like
no one has it. I mean,
no one yet. But you're always trying to find it, and you're always trying to find guys that can come in, and like a 6th or 7th man that can come in. It just felt like maybe we just don't have that right now, or guys like Cole. Like you guys know, I was big on Colby Sorsdale, and Dan even was so big on him in training camp, big on him in mini camps. I'm interested though, like to see the next 2 preseason games. Like the offensive line, Colby is gonna like massive magnifying glass on him. My second one, my number 2 one here. I hated to have to write this name down. Hated it. Maurice Norris. Maurice Norris. Hey, we're Maurice Norris fans on this show. He struggled yesterday, boys. Like he missed tackles. It felt like every time we were like, who missed that tackle? And you guys are like, oh, that's Maurice Norris. That's number 39. Or who was in coverage there? That's number 39. And we were like, oh, no, come on. Yeah. Felt like Maurice Norris just had a tough, especially a guy fighting for a spot, had a big week in the joint practices. And then he was hoping, I'm sure, to have a big game. Struggled a bit. Maurice Norris struggled a bit. So that's someone for me I wrote down. I had to. Like, I was sitting here and I'm like, all right, we have to write guys down that we shut up Big M. We have to write guys down that are like, as much as we might like start like really falling for guys, we're like, we love this guy. We have to be honest with the people. And Maurice Norris had a bad day. And then the third one I had, obviously, I think Jeff, you said it, Maurice Alexander as well. That was, I said it on the stream last night a bunch. Last year, he had a great preseason. He returned a bunch of kicks. He was doing really good, doing very well. You thought he was going to make the team, didn't make the team. This year, he had to have another perfect preseason, I think, to make the team. And fumbles basically 2, essentially fumbles 2, and doesn't. Yeah. It was just a very, very bad game for him. Like he needs a huge game versus Kansas City, and then that final preseason game to be able to even touch the roster, which sucks because great guy.
Especially with the wide receiver, the amount of wide receivers they have currently, like you're gonna have to separate yourself to even have a chance at making the roster. So I don't hate that at all.
Can I throw one more out there? And actually,
you could. There's probably more that aren't even on here.
Another one, and he didn't. It's not that like he was very bad. He just didn't really stand out. And there was other players at his position that stood out that I was like, Dan, Dan's gonna look at this at the roster evaluation. They're gonna like, all right, who would we rather have? That was James Houston. Like he made a couple plays where like he had that big hit on the sideline. He didn't, like, you would think a guy like James Houston, like how Broderick Martin was, how Broderick was a guy who like you're like he needs to stand out because he's supposed to take that step. And a guy like him in a preseason game that you expect to play in the regular season, you expect him to make 2 or 3 plays throughout the night that you're like, oh, whoa, yep, no, he's ready to play with the big dogs. James Houston just didn't really make any of those plays where you're like, whoa, James Houston. And that's like in the preseason, you're playing against second and third team guys. So like a guy that you're expecting to hopefully be a starter at a point, you want him to stand out. The guy who stood out to me instead of, and I guess we're going to get into our winners, but like there was a couple edge rushers that played 100 times better than James Houston yesterday. And you could be like, that's not good for James Houston. I'm going to say that.
What do you think? What do you think, Lucas, about that?
I mean, I think Houston kind of falls into, like, I think you could technically put him into losers, but I think he kind of falls into the same category as Fountain, just because I think he, like you said, made some flashes. You expected more. But even Dan, like, after the game, he's talking about he's going through a bone bruise, which people can laugh at. Bone bruise is fucking hurt. Like those, and they last for like 2 weeks. So when you're talking about a defensive end, the speed that he has, if it's going on in his knee, I'm not saying excuse everything, but I think I'm not panicked about James Houston. To your point, Booner, I 100% agree with you. Wish you would have seen more. But even like early on with Drew Lock, absolutely set the tone for that defense out there. I know it didn't result in a sack, but he laid Drew Lock out of bounds. And I think that's definitely something you'd like to see because you can still see he has the speed to get out there, contain the quarterback. And if the quarterback does break out the pocket, he's still able to get out there. And there's some defensive ends on this team that can't do that. So was I expecting more out of James Houston? Yes. But I wasn't like, what's going on with James Houston, man? I'm not saying you guys were either, but my stock pretty much stayed the same. I think there's guys that performed better than him that are under him on the depth chart. So yeah, you like give those guys a credit, but I don't think that takes away from James Houston either. Kind of just stayed the same for me.
You know who has to have a pretty big preseason at this point to even have a chance at making the team is Matthew Betts. Like this guy at Boone. Hey,
it's over.
Got some pressure on the screen pass.
We can go get the pizza.
You're turning it in already?
Dude, we'll go get the pizza tomorrow, dude. It's over.
No.
The match. He played in like 6 snaps. Like you're not making the team, and like you have to have like an insane 6 snaps. I think the number is 6. Let me get the number. Matthew Betts 7 snaps on defense.
Oh,
7.
Made a special teams tackle though.
He had 7 special teams snaps, but 7 defensive snaps. That's tough.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, he came out at the bottom of the depth chart too. Like the flash that we had from Matthew Betts was talking about on that screen pass. You're like, oh, Matthew Betts is about to give him the it's a screen pass, and like that's why Matthew Betts was just running unblocked there. So Matthew Betts, the hope is he made a nice tackle on special teams, 1-on-1 open field tackle. That's going to be his moneymaker. If he can be on the kickoff and kick return team, keep making a difference, that's the way he can do it because his defensive end line depth is not there. But I'm still sticking to my guns. He's not making the roster. But
it's over.
You can't be mad at him from last night. It's just one of those things we talked about. It's like, will he even see the field? Just because a lot of times those bottom, like when you're on the bottom of the depth chart, there's so many situations throughout the NFL where you don't even play and you're getting cut the next week. And it's just that's the way the NFL works. So
there's zero chance Matthew Betts makes it.
There.
0 chance.
Coach Walk.
It's over.
Maybe they're saving him, Booner.
Maybe I hope so, Coach Walk.
Coach Walk.
That's a player you sign for in December when you're going up against Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy.
Brightest. Yeah. That's this guy that you bring out. Like who is that? It's Matthew Betts comes out the tunnel.
29-year-old out of British Columbia. What you gonna do about it? Absolutely nothing.
You know what? It felt like yesterday. At least it's a start. All right, it's a start for me in my narratives. All right, I just felt like yesterday everyone had their own narratives that like Booner with Broderick and Klotzy with Vaki. We each had our own wins. I felt like yesterday, boys. I was it's like just swimming in W's with narratives. All right. And I'll give you a winner. And that is the quarterback, number 2 out of Tennessee, former 3rd-round pick, Hendon Hooker. All right. Yes, someone that, I had to walk through the fire. He was not playing well at all. The mini camp, OTAs, training camp has not looked great. He was actually quarterbacking the 3rd team. Nate Sudfeld, he was in with the 2nd team, and it was Hendon Hooker. The doc, who I respect so much, the doc would come on and say, yeah, he didn't look good today. Did not look good today. And then he came in after Sudfeld. And again, I said this, and I posted a video today on Crunch Time, which you guys can go check out, kind of diving a little more in depth into the game itself. And I don't know whether it's because of how bad Nate Sudfeld looked, or it's that Hendon Hooker actually just looked like fine. And I think that's good. He didn't go out and just light the league on fire in preseason, but he just looked poised. He looked like he was supposed to be there. He didn't look like phased at all. He took the check down when he needed to. He scrambled when he needed to. Decision making was on point. Accuracy issues at times, but again, a couple throws he wish he could have had back. But I thought overall, just quarterbacking, he looked great. I mean, and Dan Campbell talked about it in the press conference. Like they moved the ball with Hendon Hooker, either through the air or on the ground when he was making plays. Now he's got to learn to slide. All right, and I think that was partially him being out for so long. And he's like, I need to get it. Like I'm trucking somebody. All right, and he did that. Obviously left with a concussion, so it didn't work out in his favor. That's something he has to learn. But even dating back to when he played at Tennessee, it just feels like in these big games, he plays well. And not that yesterday, a preseason game, it's not a big game, but for him, it was a big game. It was his first start in an actual NFL organized game, even against 2s and 3s. But everyone was watching, right? We all knew what to look for. The poll yesterday we put on our YouTube channel, who are you most excited to see? Hendon Hooker was by far the most voted player. So he knew, well, people are going to be watching him. And I thought yesterday he just handled his business. It's unfortunate that he left early, but boys, Hendon Hooker, kudos to him for yesterday. That was a huge game. It's a start, rest of the preseason. I want him to get healthy. I want to see more out of him. It's really probably the only reps he'll get, knock on wood. I think Jared will be healthy all year. So it's the only reps he'll truly get. But I thought yesterday, boys, was a move in the right direction for Hendon Hooker. So, man, a lot of love for what he did yesterday. Shout out to him.
Yeah, I think with Hooker, too, like, one of the things that obviously you go from Sudfeld to Hooker. So and I think Hooker had a great game. Like the 2 drives that he had, it was night and day difference from Nate Sudfeld. So like maybe when you go from Nate Sudfeld to Hooker, it makes Hooker look a lot better. And you're like, okay. And especially with the anticipation of the game, I do think there's like things with Hooker. Like we saw how mobile he is, the throws he can make, everything he did. Like Dan said in the post game, like there are still things for him to kind of that he needs to kind of dial in on and staying in the pocket, being able to, he probably shouldn't take hits like that. It's like now you see like he's already in a concussion protocol from taking those hits. And I'm sure he was just trying to like go out there and prove a little bit like, hey, I'm here. Like I can play football still. And he made that play. But I still think there's the developmental stage with him, like learning Ben Johnson's offense, as Dan said. There's still going to be things where Hendon Hooker needs to go out there and he needs to figure out what he can do in this offense. Like, because if Jared Goff goes down, you don't want to be like, hey, let's change this whole offense around Hendon Hooker. You have to still be able to, he has to be able to run the offense that Jared Goff and the guys are running and the Lions are running. So I think that's where something he's still adjusting to and trying to figure out this offseason. And I think he obviously can do it better than Nate Sudfeld. I just think it's still going to be a little bit of progression. Like I'm still on the side of still go out and get someone, just because obviously Hooker got hurt, so he's in concussion protocol and he's out for however many weeks it's going to be, whether it's 1 or 2. But I'm even if Hooker's healthy, I still think if there's a situation to where you still have to go out and get a number 2. Like I'm out on Sudfeld, and I think you still need to let Hendon Hooker, as much as we loved what we saw last night, boys. And I loved it. Like that was the most electric 2 drives of our lives. But don't forget, we just saw the worst 6 drives before that in football history. So like being able just to see anything different was great. So I just think like still go out and get a number 2. I think I bet you in the next couple of weeks, Brad's going to sit down and they're going to look at some options at quarterback to bring in. But I love, like, Jeff, I'll give you, obviously you were, I'm not going to say it. You were all in on Hendon Hooker taking the starting job this year, potentially, or next year. But I will say he will develop into a very, very good QB2 behind Jared Goff. Like I think he showed a ton of flash last night, and I loved it. I was not sure what to expect. I wasn't sure what I was going to like going in. I was like, all right, there's so much hype over Hendon Hooker. The hype, he lived up to the hype. It was a beautiful thing. He still has work to do though, fellas. Let's just be honest. He still has work to do.
There's work to do, but you could see the vision there. I mean, he, in his first preseason game ever, was going through his reads better than Nate Sudfeld was. He was able to hit the checkdowns. You saw Isaiah Williams, who I'm sure we're about to talk about really soon here. You saw the offense pick up, and they're able to get down the field. And I think he definitely, Booner, you're correct. He needs to develop his arm, but you can see he's making the right reads. When they were backed up in the red zone, I don't remember who he's targeting, but it was kind of like a slant, or maybe it was like a dig route, but he just completely missed him wide. So those things he definitely has to nail down and check down, but that's what they're working on in camp. You can see that Hendon Hooker in 2 to 3 years, if he just really develops, he can be a very good quarterback in this league because he's so damn intelligent. Like you can just tell, like the reason he's poised and calm is because he's been playing in so many situations, not in the NFL, but he's been seeing so many situations in college football. He just knows how to handle it. Hendon Hooker has all the physical attributes. He's an incredibly intelligent human being, and he's in a great situation being able to develop. So I think the sky's the limit, especially as a backup quarterback. Like I'm not the most comfortable with him backing up Jared Goff this year, just because I think if he's got to be put into a big game, Jared Goff goes down against like the Houston Texans, San Francisco 49ers, knock on wood, any game, I'm not going to be comfortable with Hendon Hooker going in there. But you talk about in a year or two, I'll be damn comfortable with Hendon Hooker backing up this team and potentially going in there to win a game or two. I by the way, I want to say this. I'm happy that he didn't slide. That was his first game back. I know he might have got a concussion out of it, but that's how you set the tone that Hendon Hooker is here. He's not some soft little fucking bitch that's like not going to take a hit. Like Hendon Hooker is an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and I'll give you this side. For those who want to trade him, that was a win last night. If you want to trade him, that's a win in the future. I do want to say this, okay? And I was waiting on this because I wasn't sure how you guys were going to take this, okay? I don't know if we're talking about upgrading the backup quarterback position. You give me a name, we can have a conversation. Okay, Ryan Tannehill, I think that's a fine name. I do think you have to factor in whoever you do bring in will have to pick up this offense. All right, pick up this offense. And maybe if you do get a veteran, it will be beneficial because Ryan Tannehill's been in different offenses. So I get that point. I'm holding. I'm holding out. I'm just gonna. I don't know how you. I guess you'd use the word hold, but I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna let this thing. I don't hate it. If there's a game where you need a backup quarterback to finish a game or play, I know, and I'm not just basing it off last night, partially, but based on his development. If we can keep this thing moving in the right direction, I think you can get to a point where you're okay with him taking the reins for a game. I do.
I agree with you.
Because hold on, listen to this. He had Isaiah Williams, an undrafted free agent, as his number one wide receiver last night. Okay, against twos and threes. I get that defense. He's going to be with the best offensive line, the best running back duo, one of the best receivers, one of the best tight ends, the best OC. I come on, you can't discount the situation he's in either.
Listen, I'm with you, but defensive coordinators are going to be, you know what, Hendon Hooker's in there, we're sending the house because what's he struggling with right now? Accuracy. If it's not a drag route, I'm not comfortable with Hendon Hooker throwing it this year. Like if it's a deep ball and potentially can go out of bounds, it's fine. But if a guy like Mason Rudolph, like you can laugh at that name all you want, but that's a guy who's played in playoff games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I believe he's a free agent, even if he's not. Like you could get him for like a 6th round pick, and he's a guy that. We look at Minnesota last year. Like they were just bringing in quarterbacks and they were playing them within a week. And yeah, you're like, okay, they don't know the offensive playbook. But at the same time, the other unit, the defensive unit they're playing against, has no clue what to expect because you've been watching film on this team for this type of quarterback. They play this type of style. And even to your point, like if Hendon were to go in this game this year, like the defense would be like, huh? Like, what do we do now? Because you have to account for an extra man being able to run if it's a pass play because Hendon Hooker showed you, like, he's not afraid to run. So Hendon Hooker, like, it's better than Nate Sudfeld, but I still think you bring in a guy that's done it before, that's won some games in the NFL, just because Hendon Hooker in this season, like where the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, it's one play. It takes one play to flip a game, and that will kill his confidence. Like if he goes in there and he throws just an aired throw, pick, touchdown for the other team, everybody's going to be like, Hendon Hooker sucks. That's not what he needs. Just let that man sit. If he's a third-string quarterback and then his number gets called out, I'm comfortable with it. But go bring in another legit guy.
There's a thing too where it's Jeff. I bring it up like the Ben Johnson offense. Like he's got to call out blitzes. He's got to like see coverage. There's so much with this Ben Johnson offense where you're making audibles. He like to run that fully and to get thrown in the fire in the middle. Say like the game that you're calling out. Say Jeff, Jared Goff is out for the Cowboys game in Dallas, and you're like, hey, Hendon Hooker, let's go, Michael Parsons. Like you have to figure out a way to get blocks over towards Micah. You have to figure out all these different things in the middle of the huddle, or you know what I mean? Like with the crowd in Jerry's world, I'm not very comfortable with that. Like there are guys that are even like free agents right now who are just sitting there. The Ryan Tannehills, like there's guys who have done it in the NFL, whether you think they're good or not, but they've played snaps in the NFL for years and they're vets. And they're going to be able to go in there. Like Kalachi's point with the Vikings last year is perfect because the Vikings just brought in vets and like a Josh Dobbs or they just brought random vets in that just are able to know you can make those reads. You know that he's able to call plays at the line. He's able to make adjustments at the line. He's going to be able to run the offense. You know what I mean? Like I think it's a little bit more deeper than, hey, this guy's very elusive. He can run and he can sling the rock. Like I think there's a little bit more to it. And that's where I think people with the hooker thing, where they see like what he did last night, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, "Oh, we got a mobile quarterback who can play football and he can sling the rock. Like this guy's got an arm." I think it's like, hey, there's a little bit more, and I think Dan and them do know that, and they look at it to where they're like, "Oh, like all right."
This is where I'm basing my argument off of. It's not just he's mobile like that. Yeah, that helps. But I'm basing it off. This is a man who's been in this scheme, in this offense with these players for over a year with chemistry, developing chemistry. Like he knows where he's starting to know where Amon-Ra likes the ball, where Sam Laporta likes the two guys, by the way, Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra.
That's where I'll push back a little bit. I disagree with that. I don't think he's gotten enough work with those guys. You got to think about it, Jeff. He was hurt all the way through last year.
Right now,
I think a vet like that, Jeff. What you have to understand, and people have we're saying like I was in the heavyweights watching the heavyweights, and I had this conversation with Easy. They kept saying a guy who's been in this, who's been in here for a couple years, like guys. Hendon Hooker was hurt all the way until last year. He didn't really do training camp last year. When he fully started getting snaps last year, it was during the season. You don't do full practices during the season. Like it is walkthroughs. It's you're not getting full snaps and going he's learning the offense. He didn't really start taking full snaps until about 2 months ago and running with Ben Johnson and his offense on the field. And if you remember, Ben Johnson and them came out in press conferences and were like, this is Hendon Hooker's first time getting live snaps within our offense. And they were like, he has a lot of work to do. Like he still has time. And hopefully, and remember when they left minicamp, they were like, we really hope he goes and listens and watches film and does everything that we told him, because he did struggle a little bit in minicamp trying to get things down. And he came back in training camp and still was struggling. So it's been 2 months essentially. It hasn't been a year and a half. He's been in the room and he's been having conversations and watching film and playbook. He has not been on the field taking snaps with these guys for.
You don't think he's thrown a single pass to Amon-Ra before training?
That's not what I. That's not what I said.
Point.
But that's a year and a half, he does not have the chemistry. Shout out Spenny. Spenny was like, oh, you want a guy who already has that experience with you. Hendon Hooker does not have the experience you guys think he does.
It's not about you're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm not saying Ryan Tannehill, older, more experience. Okay, we got that out the way. My point with Hendon Hooker is he's already been in this offense mentally for a year, learning the offense. I'm sure he was given a playbook to take home. So mentally he's had a year. Now, physically, this year is when he started to work, to your point. So now we go back a couple of months. My point being is as we get into the season, if he could continue to grow, he already has a relationship and a comfortability with watching these guys. Like he knows Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Sam Laporta, the rest of these guys. My point basically is I'd rather be comfortable with someone. We brought up how complex the offense is, someone that's already been in it, and someone that he's been around Jared. He's been around Teddy Bridgewater last year. If you want to sign Ryan Tannehill, I'm not going to hate it. But Ryan would be coming in, learning a new playbook, getting to know Amon-Ra, getting to know Sam Laporta. There is a catch up to that as well. So it's not like he's just going to walk in and be like, all right, this is easy. You're still going to catch Ryan Tannehill up either way. At least with Hendon, he's been in this offense mentally for well over a year and physically this entire offseason. And I'm sure even when minicamp and OTAs began, he's been out in Cali and stuff throwing the football to Amon-Ra. I'm sure he's worked with those guys too in the offseason. Yeah. So that's my point is I get the skepticism. I'm not saying you're completely crazy or nothing like that, Boone, but I want to see where Hendon develops. I think even by week 8, let's say you need him, I'm comfortable giving him that amount of time. I think he'd be ready. Personally, I do, because he would be with the second team going up against, now he's moving up. He's moving in the right direction. That's my point. If you disagree, fine. But I'm comfortable with Hendon for a game. If you're talking a 5-game stretch, who cares who the quarterback is? I mean, you're in a different situation regardless. Ryan Tannehill, if you believe he can win you those games, great. He hasn't been signed, so why isn't any other team signing him? Dude's just chilling in free agency. 64 players, by the way, 64 quarterbacks with the quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 in the NFL. Not a team has signed him. Ryan
Tannehill's better than 80% of the backups in the league right now. Come on.
Why isn't he signed?
He's probably waiting to see what opens up. That's a bad. There's a lot. Why isn't Justin Simmons signed? Come on.
He's been taking visits.
I'm sure Ryan Tannehill has spoken. That's not a valid argument. That is not. Jeff, know that.
Jeff, okay. I see your point. I see your point, but I think we'll just use. Just because we've been bringing up a lot. A guy like Taylor Heineke, you bring him in. No, he's never been in Ben Johnson's offense before, but he's had to learn new offenses previously before. So he has that experience of, okay, I don't know what's going on in this offense. What do I remember from Washington? What do I remember from Atlanta? What did I use to be able to pick up on these offenses? Because at the same time, he's played in the NFL, and yeah, the X's and O's are going to be called differently, but a lot of the schemes and stuff, they're pretty similar. They're not going to be exact, but a lot of the concepts, he's ran those concepts before, it's just different terminology now. Obviously, Ben Johnson's playbook is a lot more developed and a little bit more I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Articulate. I can never say that word for whatever, but it's a lot more articulate. Like there's more to process with it. So it is going to be a learning curve, but I think it would be to this. Hendon would have that day one advantage where that's all he knows. But I think being a veteran backup, like you learn multiple systems throughout your career, and that's something that would kind of even it out, in my opinion. And you just have the natural playing experience. I don't think either way, like I prefer bringing a guy in, but I don't hate what you're saying, Jeff. It's just I would rather a quarterback be signed now. And then if Hendon's like developing fine by week 8, release the quarterback you brought in and go with Hendon. But I think at least at the immediate spot right now, bring in that safety blanket.
Yeah, I don't hate bringing in an experienced veteran. If you want to do that, that's fine. I just think Hendon, he's 26 years old. It's not like the dude's 21. He just got drafted. Like I think at some point, like if you say like wait a year, okay, he's still going to debut in a year. And if he throws a pick, to your point earlier, you don't think that's going to like who cares when it is? He's going to start. He's going to have to go out there eventually if there's an injury. If it's next year, this year, whatever it is. And it'll be probably his only chance. I don't think he'll be out. If Jared goes down, the only opportunity he'll have. So I don't hate it. I have more confidence in his development. We'll see. I mean, there's more preseason, so we'll see how that translates. I see some people talking about Ryan Tannehill maybe waiting and being a quarterback one. Could be a reason. Just waiting for an injury. Maybe he doesn't want to be a backup because you have Carson Wentz and these guys, Jimmy Garoppolo, all these guys are backups. And then Ryan Tannehill. I agree with you. He's better than 64 QBs. At least he could be a backup somewhere, but he hasn't signed. So maybe he's just chilling, waiting. I don't know.
Arizona likes Clayton Tune more than Ryan Tannehill. That's all I know. That's all I know.
No. And I do think that Ryan Tannehill, he's fine, but who knows what he wants? What if he's waiting to be a quarterback one? Then maybe you got to make a trade with Taylor Heineke. And I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe this is another take. I don't love the idea of trading picks for a backup. Like, I don't like that.
I think if it's like a 5th round or back, I don't care. Like, that's fine. If it's anything above a 5th, I agree with you. But you got Donovan Peoples-Jones for a 5th round pick. I think a backup quarterback, while he might not see the field, is going to bring you more value. So if you're willing to spend a 5th on DPJ, go get a Tyrod Taylor, Taylor Heineke, any of those type of guys for a 5th round pick. And back. I mean, I wouldn't be like, ooh, that's a steal, but it's like, all right, I'm not tripping over it by any means. It's a 5th round pick.
Who are some of the free agent quarterbacks? I want to look that up.
I have it pulled up right here, actually. It's Ryan Tannehill, Brian Hoyer, Blaine Gabbert, who I cannot stand watching play football. Blaine. AJ McCarron, who I honestly wouldn't hate. Matt Barkley, hard pass. Trevor Siemian. That's like if Sudfeld actually knew how to play football, so I'm not very high on that. At Logan Woodside, Toledo Rocket legend, and then Ben DiNucci. So but that's why it's like, if you're going to get Ryan Tannehill, that's fine. AJ McCarron, that's fine. But I'd rather him just go trade for a guy that just like is sitting like there's a couple 3rd-string quarterbacks. If you're to go to look, you're like, oh, they could be quarterback 2 somewhere else.
So if it's not Ryan Tannehill, fellas, it's probably via trade. Is that what we're all saying?
There might be a couple guys that get cut just because of the way the 53-man rosters work out, and some teams might only keep 2. And maybe, so maybe someone like if you look at New York, like they'd have Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito. What if, I'm sure they'll keep 3.
Tommy Cutlets?
What happens if one of those guys gets cut or just like, what I mean? There's always those one-off scenarios. So
Tommy
maybe they're
Cutlets
waiting.
For the 6th, Jeff? Would you do that now?
I would. Hey, give me it now.
Yeah. Now we're talking. We're talking.
DeVito, that's where the narratives intertwine. That's where we have a problem, but it's okay. I don't hate that. Before we get to the doc, he's going to be joining us in 5 minutes, so please stick around. It's going to be a good convo with him. We'll get into more of everything we discussed today. I'll ask you guys, anyone you want to see more out of, a player you can name, chat, feel free to chime in. Give me a player you want to see more out of this.
More out of is like snaps or like, okay, we have to see more out of you.
Both.
More out of you, probably.
Yeah, we can go that route. More out of you. You can do that.
I mean, I feel like mine would probably be James Houston. I'll go the other way with it. A player I want to see more just because we haven't touched on him yet. And I want to get Doc's opinion. Isaiah Williams, like watching him, like I know it's the same number and everything, but he plays football exactly like Tyler Boyd. And those are the type of players that just last around the league because they're so consistent. And I think when you watch his route running, check. When you watch his hands, check. When you watch him in the kick return game, check. So I want to see him out there more with the 2s instead of the 3s because I know there's a lot of hype about Caden Davis. But Caden Davis got absolutely destroyed into the sideline last night. Nate Sudfeld tried to throw a ball to like make it look competitive, but he was getting bullied. I know he caught one pass, but Caden Davis, expect to see more out of him. But in the meantime, move Isaiah Williams up, because I know he's an undrafted rookie, but they signed him to one of the largest undrafted free agent contracts in NFL history.
$250,000 guaranteed. $250,000.
Fully guaranteed. So I think he's going to be at the bare minimum the practice squad guy, but he's showing flash. If you put 10, 15 pounds on that dude, I think that's a legitimate depth piece for this Lions team.
What about you, Boone?
Honestly, I probably would say I would probably go with like Klotzy's route. I know he said Isaiah Williams, but really just the wide receiver 3, like Darius Fountain. I want to see more out of him next preseason game. Caden Davis. I just want to see what these guys can do, like act like what they've been doing in training camp, because it's so hard to know who's going to be that roster like that. I think that's a big concern. I said it back in March, and I'll say it again. Like the DPJ thing was supposed to be wide receiver 3-4, and he obviously hasn't worked out. And now it's like there's a legit, after last night, there's a legit concern about the wide receiver position outside of Khalif and JMO and Amon-Ra. So that's like I'm sitting there. I want to see more out of those guys. Like I know yesterday, and Dan said yesterday, it was a rainy day. You're at MetLife, so you, like, as much as people hate it, you have to run the ball. And that was kind of what he said and why they ran the ball so much, even though it wasn't working. But they did not get the pass game going. I hope next week versus Kansas City, like, get the pass game going and let's see who steps up. Like Isaiah, I love the Isaiah Williams one, because Isaiah Williams was supposed to be a draft pick. Like, he fell out of the draft. He was supposed to be, I think, a 5th round pick. Like, he was a guy that was supposed to get drafted, and you pick him up. So, like, I think a guy like him, I need to see Fountain. I want to see Darius Fountain, and I want to see some of these guys. I really do.
Stop throwing 3 screen passes to Antoine Green every time. That was driving me nuts too.
Yeah, I thought you guys.
Boone, I wanted to ask you this though, just before we head into the season too, because it's not even like a shot. Like I'm genuinely asking this. So like when Lions, the season starts week 1. I'm frozen right now. Sorry. When they roll out like Isaiah Williams or Donovan Peoples-Jones, whoever that is, are you actually concerned about them being on the field, or are you concerned that there's this much competition going on for the wide receiver 4 spot? Does that make sense? Like, if Isaiah Williams was on the field week 3 for the Detroit Lions, would you be concerned, like, get Isaiah Williams out of there?
No.
Or are you concerned that there's no proven guy for that spot yet?
I think it's just more so it's like you need someone in there who's going to be able to make plays. Like a wide receiver 3-4, whoever it is going to have to make plays eventually. Like, you're going to need something. Like, he's going to have to go out there and get 300-400 yards this year. Like, that's just that's what it was last year with JMO. JMO was like that 4th guy, and when he was off the suspension, he had 300-400 yards. Like, someone's going to have to step up and replace that, and it's going to be one of these guys. And for me, the concern is who's going to do it, because like it keeps changing every week. It's Fountain. Now this week, it's in the preseason, it's Isaiah Williams, but he only had 30-something yards. Like DPJ gets 1 catch, but like he was nowhere. Like a DPJ is a guy who should stand out in a preseason game. Like whatever quarterback you have, he should be getting open every time and standing out. Like there's just the concern is there's no one right now that's taken a step forward that's like, hey, I can go out there and get you 300 to 400 yards this season and like be consistent and consistently catch balls. Like there's no one that's done that yet. So like that's the concern a little bit more. It's just like you need someone that can step in.
When they do pick a winner, will you be confident in that player? Or are you
when they pick it, yeah, obviously you still want to see it in the regular season, because whenever obviously like all these guys compete for the spot have never done it in the NFL. Like none of them have. Like some of them might have been in the NFL for a couple of years, but they haven't put up that many yards consistently. So there's going to be a little bit of concern, but I think like I do trust Dan in them. Like if they don't think a guy can do that, I would think they go out and get someone. But I think if whoever wins that job, I think can do it. Like I think Fountain can do it when he's running with the ones, and you have Amon-Ra out there and Sam Laporta and Gibbs like taking guys away from you. Like even in the joint practice, there was still videos coming out of Fountain making plays, creating separation, and getting a touchdown. Like he can do that, and then Jared Goff could get him the rock. I'm just more so like we need to see someone separate themselves, and I don't know if we're going to see it in a preseason game because of the quarterback play that we have. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It is. I think it is concerning though. Like I think it's okay to be like, this is a problem.
Okay.
I'll say a player I think I'm excited to see more out of now with Ennis Rakestraw. I don't think he plays a ton more. Amik, I think, should be done. We know Amik's good. Nothing I learned new about Amik. Stephen Gilmore, someone that I've been a big fan of. I think you need to let that man get as many snaps as possible the rest of preseason, given he's not going to play really at all unless there's injuries in the regular season. But B, I think you got to see what you got in Stephen Gilmore. I mean, the guy can cover. He's got cover ability. He's natural. He looks like a natural out there. I know the size is always something people bring up with them, which I don't really have much pushback for. But Stephen Gilmore is a very interesting one because especially with cornerback, given Emmanuel Mosley is out, and you never know what happens during the season. There's going to be some injuries. I just think having another body like Stephen Gilmore on your roster at corner, I like it. So I want to see more of Stephen Gilmore, just like we saw last year in preseason, and he had a pick. I think he might have had 2. I think he had 1 at least. But get him more on the field. That would be my selection. And then I'll even throw in Isaac Ukwu. Got to see more of him. I like that guy a lot. It looked like he was winning one-on-one consistently. So Ukwu would be my other one. I want to bring on the Doc because he is joining and he is ready. I mean, the Doc, this guy moves like a superhero. I mean, 1 minute New York, he's back. He's in a hotel. He's at MetLife. Now he's on stream with us 2 times this week. Doc's given us 2 appearances, 9 to 9:30 here. So let's bring on the Doc, the man, the myth, the legend. Please welcome to the show, the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Please welcome to the show, Mr. John Maakaron. John.
Yeah, fellas.
Welcome back, John. How was the drive?
Back in one piece? Man, what a trip. Caught a little bit of the remnants of the hurricane from south in Florida, but the drive back from 3 o'clock was amazing. Back in the D, baby. I'm looking forward to talking about the game. It was tough, man. It was crazy to be part of all that, but man, football's back and we got some things to talk about, right?
Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah.
We actually have been talking. We've been talking all the past hour about some of our takeaways and guys that have impressed. And I'll start with the guy that we've had discussions about. And I just got to get this out the way, Doc. Hendon Hooker. All right, Hendon Hooker. We had this conversation before, and again, OTAs, minicamp, training camp has not looked great. But then it comes into a game situation, Doc, and I brought this up during the show. I thought he just looked poised. I thought he handled the offense pretty well. He didn't look like the moment was too big for him. I get he's going up against 2s and 3s, but you have to also factor in he's working with 2s and 3s on offense. What did you make of Hendon Hooker's debut? Got a slide, Doc, I'll say that. But just overall, his first NFL organized game, whether it's preseason or not.
Yeah, it's just really the number one takeaway is it's unfortunate he couldn't play more reps. You clearly saw that he was going to get the second half, and we got to get out of the way. Nate Sudfeld was brutal, and that was disappointing. I thought he would do a lot more than he did. It made the game unwatchable in the first half. The offense did basically nothing, and it was just really a game in which you said, man, this is going to be a grind. It had just the aura of a damp, dark atmosphere. There was really nobody there at MetLife Stadium. I think there was more media members in the press box than there were in the crowd. I was excited, amped, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, when you started to see Sudfeld struggle, and then you're like, please, I think everybody watching at home was like, and I'm going to share because I don't know if everybody else has this uncle or family friend that does this, but it was great for me in the press box. But you recognize, okay, that first half was a grind. And at halftime, I get a text message from a family friend. He's a little bit older, like in his 60s, who's been through the ups and downs. And he's like, WTF, Sudfeld's the worst quarterback I've ever seen! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. He's like, has the guy ever thrown a pass before? And I was just like, I know, it's tough, it's brutal. And he was just like, this is the worst half of football I've ever seen. And it took a little bit of the luster out, and everybody at home was screaming, put Hendon Hooker in. My God, we don't want to see Sudfeld anymore. It was crazy. But look, for Hendon Hooker, look, the opportunity that he had to have those 2 drives, the first drive wasn't that great, but the second one, you saw glimpses of what he can do. And everybody said it online, and I had to contain myself, but I was like everybody else on the inside. He brought out the truck stick on the Giants, and that was sweet to see. But here's the problem. You got a running quarterback. He's still got to learn that the NFL is more than just one step drop and then take off. You got to be willing to stand in the pocket a little bit, be willing to anticipate. And that's the toughest thing for a young quarterback is they just have the hardest time throwing, anticipating where the receiver is going to be. He's kind of waiting a little bit too long in certain reps where he's waiting for the receiver to get open. And the Giants did a good job of locking up Fountain and DPJ and others. Isaiah Williams had the best game. But for Hendon Hooker, you got to realize the best ability is availability. And he got his bell rung. And that stinks because we all love to see it. We're like, wait a minute. Detroit has a quarterback with legs. I think everybody just loved to see it because we've had Goff and Stafford and everybody else that was immobile. To see somebody that can extend a play is great, but there's that fine balance between taking off and staying in the pocket and extending plays. And unfortunately, Dan Campbell said it like, hey, you can't get your bell rung. You can't leave the game like that. It's just unfortunate. It happens. But running quarterbacks got to realize that you're better suited to extend plays, but find the avenue to release the football, or if the play's not there, slide and get to the next play. And, that's the fine balance. But for Hendon Hooker, hopefully he's okay after testing, getting, a concussion. But you hope that the opportunity, if it's not against the Chiefs, maybe against the Steelers, that he needs as many reps as humanly possible. And again, I think with Hendon Hooker, we'll talk about it. It begs the question, okay, what would happen if he was put in, if something happened to Jared Goff? That'd be tough to say because he's inconsistent. And the thing that we don't know is how would he handle playing with better talent? We know what he does against, 2s and 3s. What would he do? If he struggles a little bit against 2s and 3s in practice, you would kind of think that if he goes up against a number one defensive back and safeties and a defensive line that's trying to pressure him, he would struggle a little bit. So he's still very raw, but you see glimpses, and that's what the preseason's about. And that's the avenue in which you can't say Hendon's the backup, Hendon's number 2. You can't say that because in practice, he's showing the same thing, inconsistent. And you recognize that we do got to have the talk. Above that, would you roll and gamble into the season with Nate Sudfeld? I think the discussion needs to be had. It's probably not.
No, Doc, absolutely not. No.
Doc, I want to ask you, I want to throw this out here as well. One of the big things I think I took away from the game was his defensive line, the depth. There were some guys who stood out, and there were some guys who probably took a little step back that you probably could question a little bit. But guys like Isaac Ukwu and Broderick Martin, just 2 big nights, it felt like. What are your thoughts on just the defensive line as a whole that you saw last night? Some of these guys like Ukwu and obviously Broderick it felt like he made a couple big-time plays. Got a sack. I don't know, they didn't credit him for it, but he definitely got in there and got the sack. What are your thoughts on those guys and as well as just on the defensive line guys that might have taken a step back?
Yeah, no doubt. Hendon Hooker raw, Broderick Martin raw. Seems like Brad Holmes likes him raw.
Hey, Doc, easy, Doc, easy. You gotta stop you there.
Wait, he likes the raw dogs out there that play football.
God, Doc.
But talking about Broderick Martin, man, it was good to see, right? It was great to see Broderick make plays, move around a little bit, and be impactful. So it's good to see. And he after the game, he said, "Look, man, Terrell Williams is working with him daily." And he's starting to be impactful. That's all you can ask for is make those plays. And Ukwu was great because, I really haven't written his name down too much in practice. And it's always great to see those that kind of emerge during the games because that's important is to make those plays. And for the defensive line, anybody that can make impact, it only bodes well to add to the depth because the starters are great. Clearly, nobody's questioning the starters 11 on both sides. But to have Broderick Martin take that second-year jump and play at a higher level. Now you hope he builds on it moving forward. And Ukwu, that's great as well. You recognize, man, when you can make plays in a really nasty environment, in an environment where the play was sloppy. I mean, isn't it great? Sudfeld throws an interception, and then the other guys can't secure the football and gives the football right back. So that kind of set the tone for how the game was. It was just real sloppy. But guys made plays, and you guys are pointing them out. And for Broderick Martin, that's just great because if they can count on him, if something happens to DJ Reader or he needs a spell for a series or so, or for a couple reps, if you can put Broderick Martin in to be a run stuffer, he's doing his thing. And he was gracious after the game and talked to the media a little bit. And I think he's learning and taking advantage of the time that he's had in training camp for sure. I expect more big things as well.
And Doc, I think a guy who stole the show last night, my favorite draft pick, Sione Vaki, he looked we talk about Hendon Hooker looking very poised. Sione Vaki looked very poised. So you could tell that he just had a good feel on the game. His first run, he hit the spin move. On his second run, I believe it was a draw. It looked David Montgomery-esque. He was able to make a move inside the tackles and then made a nice second move to get 2 or 3 more yards added onto that. What was the feel with Sione Vaki on the offensive side? Like, what did they take away? Did they feel very confident in him? And what did you see on the field from him, just from your perspective?
Yeah, look, Sion Vaki, man, that was a guy that when the game ended, Dan Campbell was asked like, "Hey, who stuck out?" And he mentioned Isaiah Williams, he mentioned Rakestraw, Broderick, and then a media member said, "Hey, what about Sione?" He's like, "Yeah, he popped as well." And you see when he plants his foot in the ground, he can make moves, he can do some things. And I just thought that, hey, for his rookie debut, I thought that was great. That's what he needs to do, is continue to show burst and to be able to earn opportunities out there. But clearly his role is going to be special teams. But hey, when you make plays in the preseason and you're consistent in practice week in, week out, there will be opportunities for him to play. And I do see that. You see the natural development, you see the burst, you see opportunities that he does have. Smart football player. And look, he's learning from David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and Craig Reynolds. That's a great room to learn from. So that's going to expedite his development. The best part of that is in the preseason when you can start to foreshadow. Could you imagine Vaki and Gibbs on the field at the same time, or Montgomery and Vaki at the same time, the mixing and matching, if they did two running backs at the same time? Man, with that offensive line healthy, man, that would be something. But with Vaki, the opportunities for him to develop and grow this training camp has been fun to watch. And I just can't wait to see it next week as we get back into it back at Allen Park.
I'll ask you this. You already mentioned Isaiah Williams, and he's a player we talked about when he was first signed. They gave him $250,000 guaranteed, undrafted free agent out of Illinois. I liked what he brought to the table initially. Obviously, in the preseason game, you saw more of what he can offer. What do you make of him, and what do you make of kind of the competition there and the chances that Isaiah Williams could potentially kind of build on this, that game last night, and maybe even make the roster? What have you seen from Isaiah? I mean, kind of dating back, and mention that as well, because I haven't read too much about him.
Oh, dagger to the heart, right? I did a feature on him, Jeff. It was great. And so
I was going to say, I did read that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the headline which was crafted by myself, was Isaiah Williams has the DNA to compete for a roster spot.
Damn.
And
The doc always knows. The doc
knows. The doc finds the people that are going to contribute and writes about them. And the way in which to describe him is, look, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He was an undrafted free agent, and he made plays at Illinois. And when the Lions made a commitment to him, now it's not substantial, but it's a couple $100,000 guaranteed. And it's eye-opening because typically undrafted free agents don't receive that much guaranteed money. But he's been taking a lot of reps, and he's doing all the work, because the reason why I talked to him was clearly a lot of the leaders like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aleem McNeil are starting to impact the younger guys. And after practice, I was talking to Saint, off the record, and I just said, "Hey, who's that out there?" And he pointed out, and I was like, because a lot of times the guys after practice will just put their stuff down, and you don't know what their numbers and stuff. So he's like, "Oh, that's Isaiah Williams." I'm like, "Okay, let me go talk to him." And he shared a story. He's like, "Hey, he's got the DNA from the time he was young, that, hey, you got to go out there and grind and earn your keep and do what you got to do." So he's out there on the jugs machine after practice, doing the work, doing the extra that you need. And he's been taking counsel from St. Brown, from Khalif Raymond, and he's been doing everything possible. So clearly it's going to translate when the opportunity comes. Now, it's like, what was it, 3-4 catches for 35, 36 yards, but he stood out because not a lot of the other receivers did anything, which was disappointing. Green getting the concussion, DPJ, you guys saw again. He's there, but he's not making plays. It's unfortunate, because you would think that he would take hold or have a little bit more chemistry with Sudfeld and Hooker, but it's not happening. So yeah, you can't really make too much evaluations on the wide receivers. You hope that, because at the same time too, when people say, well, Fountain didn't do much, or these guys, look, here's the situation. Those that read Lions on SI recognize that during the 2 joint practices, the backups on the offensive line kind of didn't do as well as many people thought. The Giants kind of took it to them a little bit in terms of there was some sloppiness, some disorganization, and so that carried into the game. So when Sudfeld struggled, it's not all on him. The offensive line didn't play as well. And for Fountain, look, the opportunities were there to get open, but sometimes when the offensive line is not doing what they need to do, that forces pressure, and the routes and the plays don't develop as well. So I would love to see Fountain with the ones. And that's what you saw in training camp, and a little bit with the joint practices that he's out there and he's got the big body. So it's just tougher to evaluate. You have to kind of look a little deeper. But with Isaiah Williams, I think he can compete. I think that this is a guy whose DNA is there. He may not make the roster, but I do think that there's a spot for him on the practice squad where he can develop. And if something happens to Khalif Raymond or St. Brown, you plug him right in and he'll make plays. He'll learn and develop and be a great scout team player as well. So I think Isaiah Williams, when you learn about his story from myself and other people, you'll learn that this guy is a playmaker who understands that, hey, this is the culture. And also, too, in the story, it's been told that he had opportunities to go elsewhere, but he picked Detroit. Obviously, the money was good, but he said he liked the culture. He wants to be coached hard. He likes the culture here. He likes the opportunity with the room to learn and grow. So he picked Detroit when he had a couple other options. So that's always good to hear.
Hey, Doc, I want to ask you this real quick. When it comes to the kind of the 53-man roster, I know it's just the first preseason game, and I know the cuts are a little different than years past, where I think it's like August 27th or something like that. They that's when like the full 53-man guys have to be cut. There's no more that kind of dwindling down. Coming out of last night's game, is there anyone that kind of was on the line or even you thought was an automatic roster spot? And then last night you saw some other guys or you saw them play and you're like, yeah, they might be on the cut line now. Like there's got like, now it's time to keep an eye on this guy. Like, is there anyone that stood out to you that kind of took a step back and you're like, all right, this is someone who's in jeopardy now?
Yeah, let's just first start with who kind of, struggled a little bit. You can check out, we did studs and duds. We do that after every game, who played well, who didn't. I was a little bit concerned with James Houston. I thought he'd do a little bit more. He had that penalty. He had that nice, pass rush, but at the same token, a little bit inconsistent in regards to kind of what we've seen in practice. So you need to see him do a little bit more to keep him out there on the field. Look, man, Manu struggled a lot, and it's a little bit concerning that he was getting pushed back quite a bit against, third stringers. And you see the size and everything like that, but he's, up and down. Now, when I look at it and I say, okay, who struggled mightily, again, DPJ sticks out. I don't know if they're going to cut him, but I just don't think that he's making the plays that you would think that, hey, you're fighting for your job, that you got to step it up. A player also that kind of struggled a little bit, gave up a sack that caused concern. Again, I don't think a candidate to be cut, but Colby Sorsdahl gave up a sack. I thought that he's inconsistent at times where he's still developing. You got to remember too, he came from William and Mary and he's been thrown into the fire, learning a couple different positions. So he got beat pretty clearly by the Giants right there on film. If you watch that play, it was brutal, bad technique, and he gave up a sack. So I look at, in terms of who we were looking at, I was very impressed with obviously a lot of the rookies. Trying to think of, it was just a bad performance all the way around. And you recognize, my goodness, there's just inconsistency offensively. So, the offensive line, that was the biggest thing that I highlighted was, man, the reserves on the offensive line weren't that good. But, I mean, you just have to put it out there. If you're a veteran quarterback, you're a leader, you can't put performances like that on tape. I thought that Nate Sudfeld should have been cut. I wouldn't have been surprised if I was driving home and got the alert from Booner, who's online 24/7. I don't know what he's doing, but he's online a lot. But if I got the alert that that Nate Sudfeld got cut, because the discussions was had, I listened to it all day and people were in my ear. What do you think about Tannehill? What do you think about Taylor Heineke? What do you think about calling up, other people like Teddy Bridgewater from retirement? I'm like, well, you got to start to have that kind of discussion in regards to, Nate Sudfeld. Anybody, maybe you would think, based on his time in the system and knowing things, you would kind of think that he would do a little bit better, that maybe anybody would be an upgrade at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised. I just thought his performance stuck out the most because he had that terrible throw that was intercepted. He just looked disjointed, not in rhythm. It never got going. And of course, the elements play a part in it, but you think a veteran who's been in the system would at least have a little bit more command, don't you think? And I just think it stunk up the game. It made the offense quite disappointing. And I just thought that his performance stunk it up. I think everyone's highlighting, man, Sudfeld really was a performance that was not worthy of the position that he's in.
Hey, real quick, Doc, I just want to follow up with that comment there, or the James Houston comment. Is there a situation here like where the James Houston with the way Ukwu played and Dan like said yesterday or last night that he was like, I love the way he looked. Is there a situation where like James Houston has to perform the next 2 weeks to make the roster, or is like, because I did see a couple things on Twitter of people saying like James Houston might now be on that question line where he could be a cut guy, and with what we saw last night. Is that an actual like an observation to keep an eye on?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an observation. It's the way you look at it is he has a skill set that many, I think, teams would covet. So if there was going to be a surprise trade, maybe it would be James Houston involved because of the fact that he has a skill and just maybe a situation in which he needs to go to a different philosophy and things like that. But I think he's got talent. You see it. It's just not consistent enough. It's not, it's kind of like one of those things when you look at a player and you want to rein them in. You want a player to kind of buy into the system, like don't be all. But I think James Houston kind of has a little bit of that Deion swagger. He wants to dance a little bit. He wants to showcase more of his personality. He wants to kind of flourish and kind of have more fun with the game. And I just think that the Lions are like really trying to mold him into the player, but it's just tough. And at times it can get to the point where maybe he's thinking, well, maybe it's not for me or whatever, but you're not seeing the jump consistently that you would always like to see from James Houston. He's got the raw talent. That's the thing that I think keeps him on the roster is that, okay, you just don't give up guys that can rush the passer. But the question mark is that how long are they going to experiment with trying to make him a 3-down outside linebacker and just say, okay, you're here on 3rd down. When we need you, rush the passer and do your job and get us 10 sacks. But at the same token, I just think that, maybe there's frustrations on both sides. I'm speculating, but you just wonder why would a guy with that much talent, he's still coming back from that injury. Why would he not thrive in what's going on when others have? So I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot of dynamics to it. He's got a lot on his plate, but you just see it. You just saw it in the game yesterday. Can make a nice play, but then has a penalty that you just can't take at that level.
Doc, another guy I want to bring up, kind of a two-parter here, but one, what are your opinions on what you saw from Mekhi Wingo yesterday? And secondly, the depth of the linebacking core, because honestly, it was pretty alarming. Eric Gray looked like the second coming of Tiki Barber out there last night. He pretty much got anything he wanted, but a guy that did stick out specifically in the run game was Deron Gilbert. I didn't really hear much out of camp, but I thought he kind of stuck out a little bit. So Mekhi Wingo, Deron Gilbert, just your overall thoughts on that linebacking group in this with the depth of it.
Yeah, no doubt. I like Wingo. And that's why I talked to him after joint practice. And man, that's what I love about when you start in camp, you start to learn some of the stories as to how things are going. Mekhi Wingo has a mentor in Ali McNeil. And Mekhi told me after practice on Tuesday, he's like, look, Ali McNeil is sort of my size, so he can kind of give me tips and pointers on how to pass rush. And you started to see it translate onto the field. He stood out to Dan Campbell, and you see somebody where, okay, you can plug him in and he can be someone that doesn't look completely lost. Yeah, Deron Gilbert, I thought also stuck out as well when you're looking at the defense. Yeah, a lot of people highlighted that the 2s and 3s got torched a little bit. But look, you got to also remember when we talk individual performances, the idea is in football to play collectively. And so that's what's tough is that collectively the 2s and 3s haven't gelled just yet because they're always mixing and matching. It's not like the 1s where, okay, the 1s all play together. They're gelled. They know, Amon-Ra can just give a little look to Goff and they know, okay, we're going to break the route here. And they know already. The 2s and the 3s are always mixing and matching. And so it's always a hodgepodge. And so for them to play together, that's what kind of stung in that I think people are more and more realizing the preseason sucks and a lot of hype. You can look at individual performances, but there's always that caveat. You can't say Mekhi Wingo's the man. You can't say Broderick Martin's arrived because you always have to put the caveat that they're playing with guys that potentially are not going to be working. They'll be out there with Adam hanging out in the chat. You know what I mean? So it'll be an interesting scenario when the final 53 is put together, but some guys you're starting to highlight and you guys are on it.
Well, we appreciate you, Doc. You know what? Joining us on a Friday. We had him earlier in the week. He's always here every single Wednesday, but of course took the drive all the way back to his home and joined the show. So we appreciate you, Doc. Don't forget, I did link the article, which I definitely read in the chat. Isaiah Williams feature on him. It was great. Go check it out. It's the link in the chat. Check out John's stuff, Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and listen to his podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for the time, guys. I do got to talk. Look, Adam's already in here talking about. Look, Adam, we're out there. Fountain's making plays with the ones, so it's not unnecessary hype. It's not. He's out there. Oh, we can't say. Look, he moved it. When the things that are significant in camp is when somebody starts with the threes and ends up with the ones. You can't just poo-poo that. The problem is that in terms of a preseason game, you also got to remember. That environment was crappy. And I wish I wasn't thinking that because after the game, our walk at MetLife was so long. The setup there, it's a beautiful stadium, but the complete setup was terrible. I'm going to tell you guys a story. I almost had to throw down with security. But
come on,
dog. Yeah, it's crazy. Fountain makes plays. It's not unnecessary hype. He's making plays, and he's making them with the ones. He made them at joint practices. But that environment was shitty. It was kind of the feel of like, okay, let's just get out of here. But look, pay attention. I think he has the intangibles that you need maybe to be a 4 or 5. Just, hey, when we need to play, you're out there. You're not asking him to lead the team. The guys, the competition's pretty much for starters are set. You're just looking for guys. Hey, if we have an injury or we need someone that we can rely on the scout team, hey, Fountain can be the guy. Brad Holmes likes big body receivers that can high point the ball. He can do that. It's all about consistency. And Dan Campbell said it like, yeah, you did it one week. Now do it again. So you can't just say that. It's poo-pooed. He has talent, but yeah, he's got to be consistent. Now, the setup there at MetLife, my God, it was crazy. I pull up with a non-speaking English Uber driver, and we roll past the gate, and this old lady's like, "Hey!" and she's screaming, and it doesn't faze the Uber driver. He stops, he backs up, and she's like, "I'm wearing a Sports Illustrated shirt with I got 2 watches, a backpack." She's like, "Who are you with?" I said, "I'm a media member." And she's like, "Prove it." I said, "I'm with Sports Illustrated. I got 2 phones. I'm here to cover the game. Here's an email." And she wasn't welcoming. So immediately she's looking at me, and I think she was profiling. So she looks and she calls a superior, and she's like, "Wait a minute." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So I'm telling the Uber driver, who clearly doesn't speak English, I'm like, "See, this is what happens to me all the time. These people are stupid. Like, clearly they don't know what's going on. They don't have my name on a list. I'm not important." And she calls over security and is like, "Hey, who are you with?" I'm like, "I'm with Sports Illustrated. I'm trying to cover the game here. I have an email that says I'm covering the game." And she's like, "Next time, tell them to give you a pass." I said, "A pass for what? I don't need parking. I'm here in an Uber." She's looking at me like, "Okay, sir." And I was about to get like upset because
you're about to see the real Doc.
Yeah, Doc, let him know.
1,000th time, like, you know what I mean? All I need is for 1 or 2 people to relay that John Maakaron's coming. They never will. And I'm always anticipating it. But when it happens for the 1,000th time, it's almost to the point where I'm going to say publicly, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm going to be like, "Listen, I'm John motherfucking Maakaron. Let me in the building. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm the least of your worries. There's a bunch of other 1,000 fake people trying to get into the stadium. It's not me. Stop fucking with me. I'm easy. Look, John Maakaron, I pass all the security tests, no criminal record. I've done nothing. I'm wearing a Sports Illustrated shirt. Do I look like a criminal that's going to be doing something with a public bag with a non-speaking Uber driver? You know what I mean?
Let me know, Doc.
So by the 1,000th time of that bullshit, a normal human being gets pissed. But I laugh with the Uber driver, and he's just looking at me like, "Okay." And he just dropped me off. And then from that point, what sucks is you get dropped off and you got to walk 5,000 feet to get to the media thing. And it's like, man, they didn't show no love to the media from the visiting side, but I had a good time with it. It was crazy all the way around, and I'm happy I survived it. But if I'm giving a pro tip, if you guys end up doing this and you go out there, go to the 2 joint practices, skip the preseason game. It's something where you recognize, all right, the players just want to get in, get out. It's competition. It was fun to see for me to personally go see MetLife Stadium, to take the family to New York and have a great time. But in terms of a media perspective, preseason, I think on the media side is not a A1 priority. I'm not going to Kansas City. I will cover, of course, cover the game, but not going to Kansas City. I will definitely be at Ford Field. And the other thing too is security is ramped up. A lot of high-tech stuff going on to make sure that you get in. which is great. That worked. I was anticipating that I'm standing there and everybody gets in and I'm not, but that worked perfectly. So that was good. I got back safe. So I enjoyed the chat and to break it down. But man, boys, it's something, because the concern level is always there. What do you do if something happens to Jared Goff? Do you make that move? I think you got to. I think for competition's sake, I think you can find a little bit better than Nate Sudfeld. And the offensive line needs a little bit more time to gel, especially behind the starters. And you recognize, their performance wasn't the best. But hey, that's the best part about camp, is that you have time to clean it all up. You can't make conclusive statements, but you guys and your lists are very accurate as to who to pay attention to and who to keep it and who to, the stock watch, who's moving up, who's moving down. And I hope that really, truly, I'll say this. The highlight was clearly having, people say, hey, you covered it wall to wall. Thank you. The highlight was people saying, Doc, as I was leaving and fist bumping. And
here we go, Doc.
Yeah, a couple people recognized me. And
Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of that, of the opportunity that I have to cover the Detroit Lions in the NFL and to be in the mix. And I think that when I saw the coverage versus everybody else, I said, okay, I'm in the mix. I'm doing what I think a lot of people like. But now, I also want to say this, because the coverage was, I believe, great. You guys think it was great. But here's the best part about life in the NFL. And I'm sorry, I'm only going to take up one more minute of your precious time. It was crazy. It was crazy. Wall-to-wall joint practice coverage, live blogs, interviews, footage, numbers through the roof, right? Just so happened to listen to Bussin' with the Boys. Clearly, I like podcasts. I listen to a lot of them, a lot of good people not doing them that are in the chat that should be doing them. But I love all podcasts. And Bussin' with the Boys, Amon-Ra, Jared, right? So my boy Amon-Ra sits there and they're talking, and the natural question comes up, hey, what do you think about USC joining the Big Ten? And Amon-Ra drops the hammer, and he's like, oh, I'm not concerned at all. USC is going to take care of business. And look, Michigan's one and done. I know they're done. I'm like, oh, ding, ding. That's a story that people will read that. Boom, boom, boom. I write that and thinking, okay, that's just going to be one story in the mix, and the coverage is going to be great. Guys, literally after that story posted, I did not have to write a single thing for the rest of the week. I don't have to write anything for the rest of the week. People are still reading that. I don't know if somebody reblogged it or what the hell happened, what firestorm or what message board that went to, but that shit took off like wildfire. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell? I said to my friends, I'm like, all that football knowledge and one simple story that took me 5 minutes about Michigan, where Amon-Ra's like, I know Michigan's done, blew up, where basically I could sit back and the blessing of that is I could pace my stories. There's no pressure. There's nothing. I could write whatever I want or not write. So this weekend, maybe it will be a little lighter on Saturday, but I just love the fact that in sports journalism and media, certain things will be talked about that blow up that you have no clue on. And it just, guys, it paid for the trip and it paid for next week too. So this is great. Listen, Amon-Ra, I love you, man. Thank you. You and your shit talking ways jives with me. I love it. You put some schmeckles, you put some dollars in my pocket. Thank you, my man.
Hey, Doc, I know if you listen to the episode, I know you heard that Jared Goff said he's a Michigan fan as well. You heard that, right?
I heard that too.
Just want to let you know.
I love the fact that State kept Amon-Ra from going to Michigan. That perked me up too.
That's fair. And I was at that game too when he said that, the monsoon game. I was there. Terrible loss, man.
I was there too. The monsoon game when everyone was like, why the hell is Michigan throwing the football? That was crazy.
That was Kenneth Walker game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The monsoon, I think, was a year later. Shout out my dad got married on the Kenneth Walker day. Tough day for me. Well, good day for me, but tough day on the Michigan side of things. Shout out Pops.
I love it.
I was at the wedding, and it was just like touchdown Kenneth Walker. And I'm like, oh, this is a disaster. I have to go up to the wedding. This is a disaster.
Hey, well, keep being great, Doc.
You're a legend, Doc.
Thank you for inviting me. And Adam, real fast, there's no rumor. I could run one of those. That'd be great. But I think that the problem is that I couldn't be running the business the right way. I'd probably be taking advantage of the services. Be like, where's Doc? Oh, he's with Sun Yi. Oh, Doc's with Therese.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
No
So
way.
the problem would be I can't run a place like that. I have to be disciplined because to me, it's true. It's undefeated. It always will be. And no doubt that if I was at that level of making millions of dollars, you'd see like Doc was with this girl, but then he was dating this girl, and he'd be like, man, Doc can't control himself. So I got married, I got disciplined. But if the worst thing you could do is give me money, because I'd just be open about it, I'd be like, hey, I want to have an entourage of ladies to support me because, I have a healthy appetite, full of testosterone at 45. It ain't going away either. I am full of
No
testosterone.
blue
brother.
chew
Everybody
for
knows
Doc,
it.
baby.
What
No blue chew.
I got a healthy appetite, man. It's great.
I don't hate it. Hey, Doc.
Oh
I
man,
don't hate it, Doc. I don't
Yeah.
hate it. Doc, you
Doc
know
always
what?
just drops a bomb at the end.
finds a way to get us every time.
I know.
Finds a way.
He always
Every
does,
time.
man.
Hey, no, that's not my fault. I'm just responding to your support. It's not my fault. He just said hush, hush. If I had it, it wouldn't be hush, hush. I'd come out here and promote it. Hey, John's Massage Parlor, come in and have a good time. Maybe maybe have a happy ending. Why be hush, hush?
Doc,
Oh my
Doc's
God.
with him.
Why
Hey,
be hush-hush?
Hey
Why
Doc,
be-
Yeah.
if you've got nothing going on tonight, Coach Booner returns tonight after the show. You can come watch me lead Tulane to a national championship.
The green
No
wave,
doubt.
baby.
Okay. How's it
All
going? How's it going with your pursuit of college football?
Hey, year one, I think we went 8-4, won a bowl game. Not Mackay Wingo, but Mackay Hughes, Heisman Trophy winner.
Forgot his name.
I have a guy at Tulane. I let him do a Heisman Trophy, and we're going for year 2 here. We've got the schedule set, everything's set to go. Going into year 2, might play a full season tonight. Who knows?
All right, let me give you guys one more last free tip. Okay,
All right.
listen. I don't knock any university. I don't knock any environment. I can only speak on experience. You boys need to do live remotes, college football season from Michigan State. The joy on your face, the smiles on your face will reign supreme. It's the best environment I've ever been a part of. I love going back to Michigan State a couple times a year. The co-eds are still amazing. They were amazing. It's the best environment I've ever been a part of. And if there's a day where I make enough money and I have FU money, I will sit and for an hour and a half and just tell you the stories of what the hell I saw from 1997 until 2001. Michigan State was the best experience. So I suggest you just disregard Ann Arbor. You don't need to do any content there. Go to Michigan State. Go to East
I like
Lansing.
this narrative, Doc. I like this
East
narrative.
Lansing.
We could do
Find
both.
a spot right there near the fraternities and hang out there. And let me tell you, if you have a problem coming back by yourself, that's a you problem, because even the ugliest, most antisocial people were having a good time at Michigan State, at least back in the 90s. So I think that Michigan State is the greatest place on earth. And it's the place that whenever I think about it, I smile. And I remember the great things that happened to me when I went to Michigan State. They won the national title when I was there. I saw things that are ungodly, but very awesome and amazing that are seared in my brain that I can just call up to share with you. But I would say you need to establish a connection with Michigan State, do remotes out there, even just to say, I went out there to hang out and tailgate. You'll have the time of your life if you go down to that place. It's the best place on earth. I can't praise it enough.
Hey,
your
Doc,
Disney
I
World,
gotta say,
Doc.
Doc, you told me at 40, you told us at 45, a lot of testosterone.
Yes.
I can't imagine college Doc. I mean,
Oh.
like this this man was a
Doc's
dog
in
on the
heat
league.
right now. He's in heat.
Yeah. No, the blessing for me was I was in Acres, so I was shy. But the great part was I had 3 roommates that were like, they just told me day one, our plan's to party from Wednesday to Saturday. So I'm like, seriously? Wednesday to Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 days a week, they were partying. And so the first night we went to a party and I was like, I think I've died and gone to heaven. I think I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving this university. The alcohol was flowing and the clothes were being removed. And it was great.
Oh,
Day one.
This is an all-time Doc
day
interview
one?
today.
Day one.
All-time
The girls
Doc
at the party they weren't messing around. I don't know what was going on, but They were having a good time. They were getting loose. Day one on a Thursday. Like on a
Good
Thursday.
lose. Good
Oh my
lose,
gosh.
Doc.
They
Doc,
were getting loose.
all
I was
time,
like,
Doc.
I was like, God, thank you for bringing me here. Please, God, let me survive this university. And I did. Thank God I got out in 4 years, but it was the best 4 years of my life, man. It was amazing. It was amazing. So do shows from Michigan State. I promise. Through the roof. Numbers through the roof.
It's a hell of a sales pitch.
Doc, if you have like a bar or a restaurant that you know that we can go do a show at, I will promise you we'll do a Saturday in East Lansing this year.
Okay.
We're gonna do some Ann Arbor. We'll do some East Lansing too.
Yeah,
Mm.
from what
Columbus
Doc just said.
potentially?
Yeah, I mean,
Make the trip down to Columbus, boys. Huh?
Maybe we do
Oh.
Columbus.
Huh?
We
Watch
almost
the
did it a couple years ago. Me, Adam, and Jeff, I think, almost took a trip for the pregame show a couple years back. We ended up not doing it, but I was nervous but excited. I don't know how the Ohio State people would handle.
Ohio State fan. I'm not like Ohio State fans are dicks. I'm not gonna lie.
So I don't know if we might need some security. I might get killed.
I gotcha. We'll be good. I'll tell them, hey,
Coming off a national
they don't. They're not all right up here. I'm just showing them. I'm showing them the horseshoe. That's all we're doing here. They want to see the best college football team in the land. That's all they want to do.
all right.
Doc, I'll say this: all-time interview today. I've had
Yeah,
a long day. You just took me out of my long day. You just pulled me
No
right back
problem.
and said, "Booner, be a dog. You're an absolute dog."
Yeah, it's all about it's all about being real. And this is a place where guys need to be guys. And look, you guys are still in your 20s, so why not experience it? I tell people openly as a psychologist, I think that we could bring down the divorce rate if guys just waited a little bit till their 30s to get married and experience everything that they want to. They need to get it out of their system. Otherwise, you just always have those regrets or second thoughts. I think that I got married at 29, 30. I got it out of my system, and well, sort of. And I think that it's great that it's great. It's great. I can't share publicly what I was telling my wife when I first met her. But it's made for a happy marriage. It's made for a happy marriage and in a good situation. But take advantage of your youth, man. You guys are young. Have a good time and don't take things so seriously. I think that's the number one thing. I saw someone said SI must be a chill place to work for. It's a little bit different of a setup. I'm in charge technically of everything that's going on. And so it's a good situation. And I think that we're all having fun. I think if everybody can just lighten up, have a little bit of fun, smile, laugh, say what's on your mind, judge less, laugh more, you can be as happy as the DOC. I promise you.
Hey,
Yeah,
Flip
Doc.
that. Put
Hold
that
on.
out.
Hold on. Yeah, that's impressive.
Judge
Doc,
less,
we'll talk
not
to you
more.
Wednesday, my guy. Take
That's
care.
Doc.
Have a good
Go,
weekend.
Doc. Oh, and he's
Dude
gone.
put on a master class there at the end.
That was
I don't know
unbelievable.
where like, he was cooking with no utensils. He was just cooking with gas. That's all he was.
I've been in a slump all day since 8 a.m. Doc just pulled me out of my slump. That was unbelievable. He said, "Hey, let's have a day, boy." Like, unbelievable. Speechless.
Friday show. Friday
Yeah,
show.
it's really like speechless. I mean, it's like I don't know what to say. I mean, the doc, he spoke. I mean, you heard him. The guy gives out life advice, Lions news and updates. I mean, he's just a complete. He has a good swing. He can golf. I mean, he's got it all. The doc.
So, we need to golf with him still.
Yeah, we do.
Can I ask you boys a question from before we
Real quick? Ask
Yep.
it. Get your questions just fired up in the chat. Let's just talk.
do
to
like
the chat.
a Q&A for the Lions
Yeah,
preseason
Q&A.
game?
Get your questions ready. Boone, go ahead.
Usually we do mailbag, do a Q&A for the Lions. I think that'd be pretty sweet. I just wanted to ask you guys because I actually, so we were going to do the segment now, but we were going to do like, who do you think's going to get cut or cut line now? I have stocked the James Houston thing. One of the names I wrote down was James Houston, and not like that I'm like, he's going to get cut, but it was like potential cut, and I didn't know how that was going to roll over with the fellas, and I don't know how that was going to roll over with the chat, but like what we saw from some of these guys, like the Ukwu dude, absolutely, he had 7.5 sacks at JMU 2 years ago. I went back and looked. He was at JMU, had 7.5 sacks, then went to Ole Miss and had a couple sacks. Now he's in like, obviously, like they could trade him, but like him getting getting on the roster, like
if they cut him, I would be
my
mad.
mind.
I would be genuinely mad if they cut him. If they trade him, like Dot said, that's another situation. But his ceiling, which Jeff loves, the intangibles that he does have, I mean, you got to keep him on the roster. Like I'm not denying that Ukwu did not play a good game. Like he played great, but I'm not ready to be all right. And I'm not saying that you're on this side either, Booner, but I'm not like, all right, move on from James Houston to Uku's place now. Like, no way. Like, at the same time, James Houston, how he only has played one season, he got you 9.5 sacks in however many games. Like, how many players have done that in the NFL ever? They're very few, if not any.
I just go back to a little bit, and again, I just want people to know, because I'm a James Houston. You guys know I'm a big James Houston guy. I said that I think he's like 6 sacks. The concern is like, how long do you sit there and keep saying he had 9.5 sacks or whatever it was after a whole year of injury, a whole year off, and the games that he's been back, he came back last year in the playoffs, didn't do much. Early in the season before he got injured, didn't do much. Preseason now, didn't do much. It's like, how long do you hang on to 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago? Jeff,
I think this season. I think just give him this year. That's what we find out.
Yeah, I think given the circumstance right now, like the defensive line, if they had, like, let's say hypothetically they had like a Danielle Hunter, I think you'd have more of an argument. I just don't think right now with Davenport, the uncertainty there, that you can even afford to cut him. Like, he's one of your most talented guys. I mean, despite how the first preseason game looked. But I would say no. I would say he's not going to get cut. I would be shocked if he got cut, if I'm being honest. Like, I get he didn't look great, but
what do you do though? Like a guy like Isaac Ukwu, who
real quick, this is what you're doing now. Okay, so Isaac Ukwu, very fine debut. You're pretty much banking that he can contribute at that level against ones immediately. You know Houston can.
Yeah,
he's done it,
which is fair.
You're putting your eggs in all the. I don't know if they would do that. I think Ukwu would be like a practice squad guy. They're probably going to keep him around if he doesn't make the roster. They'll keep him around.
The thought that I had was a guy like Ukwu, like, if like you don't think he works out, like, they took a shot on James Houston 2 years ago, coming out of, not a Power 5 school. Similar thing with Ukwu, where it's like he's a UDFA, take a shot on him, bring him in, and it's a similar situation to where, like, Brad has found some of these type of edge, like he's found some players late in the draft and undrafted guys who have been able to come in and contribute. And if Ukwu kind of ends up being that type of player, and you have him for the next 3 years instead of a Houston, and you can trade I don't know. I hate talking about it because obviously it was a first preseason game, but like for me, it's like Houston was good 2 years ago, but the start last year struggled a little bit. Comes back from the injury, struggles in the playoffs. Preseason game 1, you don't see anything out of him, and like that's a concern a little bit. Like you're a year removed. I mean, a little concern.
No, and I get your mindset with that. I mean, we've seen players have 1 year in the league and then just don't do anything. So yeah. I'm not saying that's what you're saying is completely crazy. I think what gives Houston an advantage is he did it as a rookie. Does that make sense? Like, I think there's guys that have done it in like year 6 and then they didn't do it again, or they didn't do it prior. Even the player, who'd you bring up? Lucas, that played for the Lions, Anthony Zettel.
Yeah.
Yes. If I remember, he had like a year where he had 6.5 sacks, and then he never did it. He was cut a couple of years. He was out of the league.
Kerry Hyder.
Yeah, another player. And he was incredible. And there's been players that have had that. I just think Houston doing it his rookie year, I think gives him more. He holds more weight. I think personally, if you do it as a rookie, like that's it. It means more rather than like a 20. Like if Betts came out and had 8 sacks, I'd be like, great, it's awesome, but like now is he already arrived or 7 sacks? Like I'd be like, I gotta see it again,
Jesus.
Or
that's
7,
I'm just
maybe
worried.
But like
anything.
6 sacks. I'd be like, I don't know if we could just say Betts has a career for the next decade in the league. Like Houston, I like what he did.
That's right. So the thing with the Houston thing, and guys, this is what, like, I thought about this earlier. When we bring up like how Broderick went out there and we felt like he dominated a little bit and he stood out. Like, what if Broderick Martin yesterday went in and he didn't do what he did yesterday? I'm sure we're coming in today being like, I'm not saying obviously cut Broderick or anything like that. Is year 2, but like you expected yesterday when we saw Broderick, like the conversations with Broderick and what we thinks he can be. He goes out there, gets a sack, he gets a pressure, he gets a couple pass deflections, he gets a couple tackles, 4 tackles, I think it was. If he didn't do that yesterday, we're probably having a conversation today. What's going on with Broderick Martin? That's where I like hold the same standard to James Houston. Like we've seen, and it's a little, we should have a higher standard with James Houston because he's had 8.5 or 9.5 sacks in a season. So you're like, all right, he should be going out there and producing. Like you should, against the 2s and 3s, you should go out there and you should stand out. and he didn't. That's where a little for me, the pushback with James Houston has been after last night was like, you should go out there and look like you should stand out like Broderick Martin did. Like it was clear Broderick Martin stood out. He didn't stand out. So it's like, I feel like it's like, oh, let's hold James Houston to that same standard. It's a tough conversation.
Yeah, I want to get to mailbag because we got some questions. We got a couple here. We'll start with Rishan here. Q&A. Anyone you would target in the trade market? I will say this name, fellas. I'm still open to getting Robert Woods. Still open. I don't even know if you have to. I mean, he might just be cut. I think he might just be cut, to be honest. I think you could pick him up. I think that'd be a solid pickup. Outside of that, trade market, defensive end.
Taylor Heineke, bring him home ASAP. And I was just thinking about because he made a catch last night. I know he's not in his prime, but he's a Detroit guy, especially because he could put that X role. Allen Robinson, he's a guy that definitely can get cut. I know he's like fighting for his life on the Giants roster. I'm trying to think of other guys that like would actually be realistic, but go get a backup quarterback. You're not gonna be able to go get an offensive tackle, anything like that, but you can definitely add to this wide receiver core. So I'd go there.
Yeah, I guess
Adam Thielen, bring Adam Thielen home.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good player. I think Robert Woods you don't have to trade for. We'll see. I think you just sign him, but I would say trade a defensive end. I'm open to that. I'm cool with that. We're back.
Right,
we're good. We're good.
Overstepping the boundaries there, Hefe.
All right. Anakin says, if any guys could do an Olympic sport, which ones would you do?
I think swimming would be dope. Like being able to high dive swim.
Maybe this is like a little bit of I don't know if this sounds maybe like an old man screaming at the clouds, but there's too many Olympic. There's so many. I see one. They're doing like the shooting one. There's like a kickboxing one. I think there is. There's so many, more than I'm gonna be honest. I even anticipated. I went to an interview today and I'm watching. They're doing like dancing with like a ball. They gotta like launch a ball like 20 feet in the air, catch it, and like there's some stuff where I have absolutely no clue what's going on. But I think track obviously would be cool. But I don't know. I think like high dive, like that shit would be dope. You're just launching yourself up and flipping like 3 times and just chink, walk off 10s. Yeah, there's
Michael Phelps-esque.
There's so many. You know what? Let me maybe not a player. Let me coach Team USA basketball, and I'll actually play Jason Tatum. All right, I'll let me coach. I'll do Steve Kerr's job, and I'll play Jason Tatum. That's my answer. So I won't play, but I'll coach. All right. Well, what's up, Boone? What Olympic sport you playing, Boone?
Let me get in like some type of water sport or something. I don't know which one, but let me get in one of those.
Diving or swimming.
Yeah, get me in a water sport. I would love to get in the water. That would be fun. Or like like those the shooting ones, like with the pistol, and they have like that device on their eye. I would go no device, just straight up. Like,
the dude who won it, no device.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
That's insane.
Breakdancing, Klotzy. Let's get you in the breakdancing one.
No,
you've got the build for it.
You watched that? Did you see that?
It's terrible, dude. It's so bad.
God,
so bad.
Yeah.
3-on-3 basketball. Let me get 3-on-3. I'll be like the 6th man on the team, and I'll just sit there and watch.
That's fair.
Shoot a couple threes.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't even watched. I don't know the difference 3-on-3 with. I mean, I heard Jimmer Fredette was out there for.
Dude, they were like the favorites or the second favorites, and they didn't even make the elimination round. It's unbelievable. They need to get like great players in there. Put Jaylen Brown in it or something.
Pole vault would be dope.
Shout out pole vault. Know a couple pole vaulters.
Is that where you throw the? Or
no, that's javelin. Pole vault's where like they, like high jump is like for track. Like high jump, but you have that pole, and you.
Where you? Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
I was like when I ran track in high school, I never did it, but I was like that just looks cool.
Is that where you get over the bar? You have to. And okay, got it. Jay Cruz and Mail Plank. Does Sudfeld get cut soon or get used again?
Cut or used? Which one?
To be honest, guys, they have to bring in another quarterback. Actually, I was thinking about it when Doc was talking, because if Hooker is out for a week with a concussion, you cannot put Sudfeld out there for a full game next week.
Yeah, they got to bring in somebody.
Someone will be in the building. I bet you in the next 48 hours. Like there will be a new quarterback in the building. Like it's a must. It is a must.
That's why I was confused why you were dying on that hill. I'm like I got what you were saying. Yeah, that's why I was like, I get what you were saying where Goff like needs a guy, but it's not like like Nate Sudfeld's the only guy that can get Jared Goff
No.
gameplay. Like we talk about guys who have played in NFL games before and suited up for different teams. Like I think that brings more perspective than
the only reason I say that is because of the comfortability that he's already been there. Like Goff knows him. That's the only reason. Like I was
buddy.
Let's not forget, I was the first one like 2 weeks ago. No one brought it up and no one was talking about it. I was the first one to say, when do we hit the red button and say we need to go get a QB2?
Yeah,
I was the first.
Ooh.
I think I was the first one in the city of Detroit to do that. And like I'm still with it. Like, go out and get someone. Brian Tannehill, go trade for someone. You have to bring someone in the building. I think what happens is someone gets cut and they bring them in, but I don't know.
We got Derek. What's the concern level of our kicker room?
Oh, we didn't even talk about Jake Bates.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear Dan about Jake Bates?
53-yarder. What'd he say?
That thing would have been good from 70 too.
Oh yeah.
Like, that thing had some fucking.
And it was wet in MetLife, wind blown. Like, that was a good kick. Listen, the thing, like Dan said in the press conference, they asked him, like, hey, what's your comfortability with Jake Bates? He struggled. He's been struggling in training camp. And like a lot of people like, do you want competition? And Dan actually was like, as soon as he started struggling, he was like, him and Dave Phipps sat down with Jake Bates and they told him, you're our guy. And we're going to let you kind of work through this and figure this thing out. Like when he was struggling. And then he said he felt like this week, I know he went 6 for 9 or whatever it was. He said he felt like this week he took a step forward, and then obviously hitting that kick. And he was like, we ended up like we gained a little bit of trust and faith in him. But they sat him down and they both told him, he said that's their guy and they're going to roll with him, and that they're going to let him work through whatever, you know, the misses and all of that. They're going to let him learn from it and work for it, which could be good. Like, you're missing kicks and you start to learn for it. Like, you can only get better. Like at the end of the day.
They see the upside. I mean, they see the power, the leg. So I get that.
I was shocked to hear that, though. I was shocked. I was like, whoa.
Panda Q&A. So now seeing most of this draft class offseason additions play, how you would rank them compared to the rest of Brad's off seasons?
I mean, I think it's different because Brad was playing it from a different like perspective this year. Like, this was kind of like the finishing touches on a Super Bowl contending roster, where in the years prior he was trying to build that. So I think it's really just, in my opinion, based on Terrion this year and Ennis and like the rest of the pieces, even like Vaki and guys like Manu, like those guys are all developmental pieces. So it's not going to be impactful, but I think as long as they're just stable, if Terrion balls out, that's what I think you're really asking for out of this draft class. At least year one.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think it's tough. Because to your point, Lucas, the first offseason, I mean, walking in, getting Penei Sewell and Amon Ra and Lee McNeil, it's like,
yeah.
How do you? But he was more aggressive in free agency, which I do give Brad credit there. But it's because he just was, because given the team. So I guess every offseason has been different. Like, it's hard to like compare everyone. And I have to wait to see how the season finishes to see like how good is Terrion in a game, you know, just to see like you look at last year, Sam Laporta, all pro, all pro, Jahmyr Gibbs, very good. Jack Campbell, you'll see a lot more this year. So, I mean, to be all pro as a rookie, I mean, it's hard to top that. We'll see. I have to revisit that question at the end of the season.
You have to see what the class does.
Yeah.
Because he's had some good classes. Like,
I know. That's why I'm so hesitant. I've never been like this before. But when we talk about trading like 5th round picks, I'm like, I know it sounds wild, but I have to like think about it, you know, because you just never know. I mean, James Houston, who we're talking about, was a 6th round pick. So it feels good to be in this position, fellas. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy
different times.
I just been checking like NFL preseason, like just checking some of the things. Hey, Nate Wiggins making some plays.
Yeah.
Quinyon Mitchell almost had a pick. I saw who else?
Lots of Nate Wiggins.
No. Yeah, I'm surprised. Hey, he's
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I liked him. He's playing well against the Ravens.
Clemson Tiger.
Yeah. Yeah, I was checking up. I like preseason. I'm weird though. I like look at preseason and like check up on stuff just to see how rookies are playing. I'll check every game, just see. I know it's just can't watch every game, but I'll always kind of check up and see.
I'm pumped though. I know tomorrow, like I'm I'm gonna watch a lot of football tomorrow. It's just like football being back. It's just, and I know it's tough. Like some of the guys, but some of these guys are decent. Like these are still like some of the best college football players that are out there playing. It is a little tough, but like, you get to see some dudes play. So I'm pumped. Like tomorrow, I can't wait. You're gonna see a couple starters play. Like I think for the Chiefs tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm excited.
We'll see. Well, thank you so much. Shout out to the doc. All right.
Hey, I just want to announce real quick, Coach Booner.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Coach Booner. I've got a new outfit for tonight. I've got a new fit, Coach Booner. Year 2 of Tulane. We did win a Heisman last year. I'm gonna, as soon as the stream's gonna start at 10:05, I'm gonna announce my schedule. I've already picked my schedule. There are some suspensions as well that I will announce on the stream. Big time suspensions from assistant coaches. So, and that was the off season. I had a busy off season. Big time suspensions here from my coaching staff. Some of them might be on this stream right now. I'm looking at them. Big suspensions, and we're starting year 2, and I might play a full season tonight, boys. I might go a full 12 games and try and finish the season and get to year 3 because I want to coach. I might want to coach Booner Campbell. I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I left the playbook at the strip club, so that's on me.
That's not what you did, actually.
That's on me. But hey, tune into the stream, watch Coach Booner try and bring Tulane back.
Natty.
Win a natty. Until then, we appreciate you. Don't forget, over the weekend, we'll have content posted. Look for that. Follow us on all social media platforms above. We appreciate every single one of you, even the doc, for joining today. So until in about 10 minutes when Coach Booner's live, we'll catch you then. Take care, everyone. Have a safe
Peace.
Peace.